I thought burying my wife 3 months ago was the hardest thing I would ever do. I was wrong. The hardest thing was standing at my daughter's wedding, watching the man who killed her smile at me while wearing my grandfather's stolen watch. But then my phone buzzed. I looked down. The screen was bright against the dim reception lights. The name on the screen made my heart stop. Coretta. My wife. The wife I had buried with my own hands. And when I answered, a voice I thought was gone forever gave me a warning that would turn this wedding into a war zone. Before I tell you what she said, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Ezekiel Zeke Harper. I am 70 years old. To the people at this fancy vineyard wedding, I am just the limping old black man in the cheap suit, the mechanic with grease permanently stained into his hands, a relic, a burden. They see the cane and the gray hair, and they think I am weak. They think my mind is fading like the setting sun. They have no idea. Before I fixed cars, I fixed problems for insurance companies. I hunted frauds. I sniffed out lies for a living. And right now, the biggest lie I have ever seen is standing in the center of the dance floor holding a microphone. The reception was suffocating. It was held at a vineyard in Napa Valley, the kind of place where the wine costs more than my first car. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. I sat at a table in the back near the kitchen doors. That is where Gavin, my new son-in-law, had placed me. Far enough away that I wouldn't embarrass him, but close enough that he could keep an eye on me. Gavin Miller, 35 years old, white, handsome in that way that makes you check for your wallet after you shake his hand. He calls himself a tech entrepreneur. I call him a vulture. He tapped the microphone glass with a silver spoon. The sound rang out sharp and piercing, silencing the crowd of 200 guests. "Ladies and gentlemen," Gavin said, his voice smooth like oil. "Thank you for sharing this special day with Kendra and me. It is perfect. Absolutely perfect. But there is one hole in our hearts tonight." He paused for dramatic effect, looking down at the floor before lifting his eyes to the ceiling. "We are missing the heart of this family, our beloved Coretta. Mom, if you are watching from above, I hope you are proud. We miss you every single day." A murmur of sympathy rippled through the crowd. I saw women dabbing their eyes with silk handkerchiefs. I saw men nodding solemnly. They bought it. They bought the grieving son-in-law act hook, line, and sinker. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned the color of ash. My wife Coretta died 3 months ago. The police said it was an accident. They said she slipped on the stairs. But Coretta had the balance of a dancer. She never slipped. And the only person home when she fell was Gavin. He continued his speech talking about legacy and family and love. He raised his hand to toast and his sleeve pulled back. That was when I saw it. The light from the chandelier caught the gold band on his wrist. My breath hitched in my throat. It was a vintage Patek Philippe. It was scratched on the side near the crown. It was my grandfather's watch. The watch I kept in a locked box in my study. The watch I had promised to give my grandson if I ever had one. Gavin had stolen it. He was wearing my family history on his wrist while toasting the woman whose death benefited him the most. He caught my eye across the room. He did not look away. He smiled. A small, cold smile that said, "I have everything and you have nothing." I wanted to stand up. I wanted to march over there and break his jaw with my cane. But I stayed seated. I knew better. In a room full of his wealthy friends and investors, I would just look like the angry, crazy old black man. That is the narrative he had been spinning for weeks. That grief had made Zeke unstable. That Zeke was losing his grip. If I acted out now, I would be playing right into his hands. I had to be smarter. I had to be the investigator I used to be, not the broken widower I had become. I reached for my glass of water, my hand trembling with a rage I had not felt since Vietnam. I needed to cool down. I needed to think. And then it happened. My phone was sitting on the white tablecloth next to my plate. It vibrated, a harsh buzzing sound against the wood. I frowned. Nobody called me. The only person who used to call me every day was Coretta. I picked it up, intending to silence it. I looked at the screen. The world stopped. The music faded. The laughter of the guests turned into a dull roar. The caller ID shone in bright white letters. Coretta. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. This was impossible. Her phone was in the evidence locker at the police station. Or it was supposed to be. The phone buzzed again, and again, demanding, urgent. I looked around. Nobody was paying attention to me. All eyes were on Gavin and Kendra, who were kissing in the center of the room. My thumb hovered over the green button. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the device. Was this a cruel prank? Was Gavin mocking me? I slid my thumb across the screen. I lifted the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice cracking. For a second, there was only static. Then a sound that made my blood freeze. It was the sound of labored breathing, the sound of someone in pain. Zeke. It was her. It was Coretta. But the voice was weak, tinny, like it was coming from a great distance or a bad recording. "Zeke, if you are hearing this, then I am gone." "Coretta," I said louder this time. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Listen to me, Zeke." The voice crackled, breaking up. "Gavin." It was Gavin. He switched the pills. My heart pills. He switched them. I felt the room spinning. The pills. Coretta took medication for arrhythmia. She was meticulous about it. "Don't let him take Kendra." The voice continued, urgency rising through the static. "Do not let him win. Check the old quilt. The blue one." I hid the proof. "Zeke, run. He is watching you." The line went dead. I stood there frozen. The phone pressed to my ear, the silence on the other end screaming at me. My wife had spoken from the grave. She had confirmed the darkness I had felt in my gut. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. He switched the pills. A wave of nausea hit me. I swayed my cane, slipping on the polished floor. I reached out to steady myself, and my hand hit a tower of champagne glasses on the waiter's tray passing by. The crash was deafening. Glass shattered. Champagne sprayed everywhere. The music stopped abruptly. Every head in the room turned toward me. 200 pairs of eyes staring at the old man making a mess in the corner. But I did not care about them. I locked eyes with Gavin. He was staring at me. His smile was gone. In its place was a look of pure predatory alertness. He looked like a wolf that had just sensed a change in the wind. He whispered something to Kendra, then let go of her hand. He started walking toward me. He moved fast, too fast for a concerned son-in-law. He moved like a man doing damage control. "Dad." He called out, his voice projecting concern, but his eyes cold as ice. "Dad, are you okay?" He reached me in seconds. He put his hands on my shoulders. His grip was hard, painful. He was not steadying me. He was restraining me. I got a call." I stammered. My mind was still reeling. Coretta called. Gavin's face hardened instantly. He leaned in close so only I could hear. The smell of his expensive cologne was choking me. "Bo, you are confused again," he hissed. His fingers dug into my collarbone. "You are making a scene. Give me the phone." "No." I pulled back, clutching the phone to my chest. It was her. "She said you switched the pills." Gavin's eyes widened just a fraction, a flash of fear. No, it was calculation. He realized I knew. And in that moment the dynamic shifted. I was no longer the annoyance. I was the threat. He turned to the crowd, keeping a tight grip on my arm. "I am so sorry, everyone," he announced, his voice full of fake apology. "My father-in-law is having a bit of an episode. The grief, you know how it is. He forgets things. He gets confused about his medication." He looked at me with a pitying smile that made my skin crawl. "Come on, Zeke. Let's get you some water. You forgot your dementia meds again, didn't you?" I stared at him. The audacity, the smoothness of the lie. He was painting me as senile in front of everyone, stripping away my credibility before I could even open my mouth. If I screamed now, if I accused him of murder right here, everyone would just see a crazy old man having a breakdown. I looked at Kendra, my beautiful daughter, standing by the cake. She looked worried. She looked scared. She was looking at Gavin for reassurance, not me. He had her. He had everyone. I realized then that I was in deep trouble. I was alone in a room full of enemies. I took a deep breath. I forced my muscles to relax. I let my shoulders slump. I had to play the part. If he thought I was strong, he would crush me. I had to be the weak old man he wanted me to be. I am sorry," I mumbled, lowering my head. I heard her voice. Gavin's grip loosened slightly. He patted my shoulder condescendingly. "It is okay, Dad. We all miss her. But she is gone. Let's get you sat down." He reached for my phone again. "Let me hold on to that for you. We don't want you getting upset again." I pulled the phone away and shoved it deep into my jacket pocket. "No," I said. My voice was shaky but firm. "It is my phone. I will keep it." Gavin stared at me for a long second. He was weighing his options. He couldn't wrestle me for it in front of the guests. "Fine," he said curtly, "but stay here. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I will have the car bring you home. You are done for the night." He turned his back on me and walked back to the center of the room, instantly switching his smile back on. "Sorry, folks," Crisis averted. "Let's get back to the party." The music started again. The guests went back to their drinks, dismissing me as a sad footnote to the evening. I sat back down, my heart still racing. I felt the shape of the phone in my pocket. It was a weapon now. Coretta message played over and over in my mind. Check the old quilt. The blue one. I knew that quilt. It was in the linen closet at our house. The house Gavin was trying to convince me to sell. I looked at Gavin laughing with his friends, clinking glasses, wearing my watch, living on my dime. He thought he had won. He thought he had neutralized me. He was wrong. I wasn't confused. I wasn't senile. And I wasn't done. I watched him carefully. I saw him whisper something to Kendra, then glance back at me. He didn't trust me. He was going to make a move. I had to move first. I waited until the waiters brought out the main course. When the room was busy with the clatter of silverware, I grabbed my cane. I didn't wait for the car he promised. I wasn't going where he wanted me to go. I slipped out the kitchen doors, past the steaming pots and the shouting chefs. I walked out into the cool night air of the parking lot. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear for the first time in months. He switched the pills. I limped toward my old pickup truck parked far away from the luxury sedans. I got in and locked the doors. I wasn't going back to the party. I was going to the house. I was going to find that quilt. And if Gavin Miller thought he could kill my wife and steal my daughter, he was about to learn that Ezekiel Harper was not just a retired mechanic. I started the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness. The hunt was on. Scene 1. I pulled my truck into the driveway of the house that had been my home for 40 years. It looked different now, darker, colder. Without Coretta, the lights seemed dim, even when they were turned on. The silence inside was heavy, like a physical weight pressing against my chest. I locked the door behind me and leaned against the wood, breathing hard. My leg throbbed. The adrenaline from the wedding was fading, leaving behind a cold ache in my bones. I took the phone out of my pocket. My hands were steady now. The tremor I had faked at the party was gone. I navigated to the voicemail. I needed to hear it again. I needed to understand. "Zeke, if you are hearing this, I am gone." It was a recording, a scheduled message sent via a service she must have set up months ago. My wife was smarter than anyone gave her credit for. She knew. She knew she was in danger, and she had set a failsafe. A dead man's switch triggered on the day our daughter married the man she feared. I walked into the hallway. The floorboards creaked under my boots. I stopped at the foot of the stairs. This was where it happened. 3 months ago, I had come home from the grocery store to find police cars in my driveway. Lights flashing. Sirens silent. The silence of death. They told me she had slipped. A tragic accident, they called it. Old houses have steep stairs. Mrs. Harper was getting older. Her balance wasn't what it used to be. I looked at the spot on the floor where they found her. I closed my eyes, and I could see the chalk outline in my mind. Bullshit. Coretta had walked these stairs in the dark, carrying laundry baskets and crying babies for decades. She never slipped. Not once. And Gavin. Gavin had been here. He said he came over to fix the sink. He said he found her like that. He said he tried CPR. I remembered his face that day. He looked shaken, yes. But his eyes were dry, and his shirt was perfectly tucked in. If you are doing CPR on your mother-in-law, your shirt does not stay tucked in. You do not look composed. You look like a mess. He killed her. The realization settled in my gut like a stone. He pushed her, or he poisoned her and watched her fall, and now he was sleeping in a hotel suite with my daughter. I walked into the kitchen. I needed coffee. Black. Strong. I had a long night ahead of me. The house felt like a crime scene now. Every shadow held a secret. I was halfway through my second cup when I saw the headlights sweep across the living room wall. It was 2 a.m. Who comes to visit at 2 a.m. on their wedding night? I moved to the window and peered through the blinds. A sleek black car was parked in the driveway. The engine cut off. The doors opened. It was them, Gavin and Kendra. I felt a surge of panic. Had he come to finish the job? Did he know I had the phone? I sat down at the kitchen table and hunched my shoulders. I let my mouth hang open slightly. I made my hand shake. The key turned in the lock. The door opened. Dad, Kendra called out. Her voice was soft, tired. "Dad, are you awake?" I didn't answer. I stared at my coffee cup, letting the liquid slosh over the rim. They walked into the kitchen. Kendra was still in her going-away dress, but she looked exhausted. Her makeup was smudged. Gavin was right behind her, still wearing his tuxedo minus the tie. He looked alert, wired. "Oh, Dad." Kendra sighed, coming over to hug me. "We were so worried. Gavin said you seemed really confused at the reception. We couldn't sleep thinking about you being here all alone." She smelled like champagne and vanilla. "My little girl, so blind, so manipulated." "I am fine, baby girl," I rasped, making my voice sound weak. "Just couldn't sleep." The house makes noises. Gavin didn't hug me. He stood by the refrigerator, scanning the room. His eyes were darting everywhere, like a thief casing a joint. "We just wanted to check on you, Zeke," he said. "And well, we need to grab some papers. For the insurance. Since we are here." "Papers. At 2 a.m. "What papers?" I asked, looking up at him with watery eyes. "Just some policy updates," Gavin said, waving his hand dismissively. "Don't worry about it. I will just look in the study real quick." He didn't wait for permission. He walked past me and headed straight for my office. My sanctuary. The place where I kept my files, my old cases, and Coretta's things. I started to stand up, but my leg gave out. I stumbled, knocking into the table. "Dad." Kendra grabbed my arm, helping me sit back down. "Be careful. See, this is what we are talking about. You shouldn't be here alone," Gavin shouted from the other room. "Zeke, where is the key to the filing cabinet?" "It is open," I yelled back. My voice sounded thin, pathetic. I hated myself for playing this role, but I had to. If he knew I was sharp, he would kill me tonight. I heard drawers being yanked open, papers shuffling. He wasn't looking for insurance policies. He was looking for the will, or maybe he was looking for whatever Coretta had hidden. He came back into the kitchen 5 minutes later, empty-handed. His jaw was tight. He hadn't found what he wanted. "This place is a mess, Zeke," he said, looking around with disdain. "You know, Kendra and I were talking on the drive over. This house, it is too much for you. The maintenance, the stairs, it is dangerous." He walked over to the counter and leaned against it, crossing his arms. "The market is hot right now, Zeke. Developers are buying up lots in this neighborhood for top dollar. We could get you a nice condo, something on one level, assisted living maybe, with nurses." He smiled, but his eyes were dead. "You could sell this place for a fortune. Why keep it? It is just dust and ghosts now." He was pushing. He wanted me out. He wanted to sell the house, liquefy the assets, and take control. I looked at him. I wanted to tell him to get out of my house. I wanted to tell him I knew he was a murderer. Instead, I reached for my water glass. I let my hand tremble violently. The glass slipped from my fingers. It hit the floor and shattered. Water splashed onto Gavin's polished shoes. "Oh, God," I cried out, shrinking back in my chair. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. Look at me. I am a mess." Gavin jumped back, looking at his wet shoes with pure disgust. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw the hatred, the annoyance, the absolute loathing he felt for me. "Jesus Christ, Zeke," he muttered. "Gavin," Kendra snapped. "He didn't mean it. He is falling apart, Kendra." Gavin said, his voice cold. "Look at him. He can't even hold a glass of water. He is not safe here. We need to make decisions. Soon." He looked at me one last time. It was a look of dismissal. He saw a broken old man who was wetting himself with water. He didn't see a threat anymore. He saw a nuisance to be disposed of. "Let's go," he said to Kendra. "We will deal with this tomorrow. Clean this up, Zeke. Try not to cut yourself." They left. The door slammed shut. I heard the car start up and drive away. I sat there for a long moment, listening to the silence return. Then I stood up. I didn't need the table for support. My hands were steady as a rock. I walked to the cupboard and got the broom. I swept up the glass. He thought I was weak. Good. That was my advantage. I checked the clock. 3:15. I had work to do. Coretta's message. Check the old quilt. The blue one. I went to the hallway closet. It was stuffed with towels, sheets, and blankets. Coretta never threw anything away. I dug to the back. There it was. The blue patchwork quilt she had made herself 20 years ago. It was heavy, thick, with cotton batting. We used to use it for picnics. I pulled it out and carried it to the kitchen table. I turned on the overhead light. I ran my hands over the fabric. It felt lumpy in places, not just the batting. There was something else inside. I went to my tool drawer and got my utility knife. The blade clicked as I extended it. "I am sorry, Coretta," I whispered. I know you love this blanket. I sliced into the seam. The fabric parted with a ripping sound. I reached inside. My fingers brushed against something hard and plastic. I pulled it out. It was a prescription bottle. Orange plastic white cap. But the label had been peeled off. I opened it. Inside were pills. Small, round, white pills. I knew Coretta's heart medication. They were blue ovals. Digoxin. These were not digoxin. I poured one into my palm. It looked like aspirin, but there were no markings. Why would she hide these? Unless these were the pills Gavin had switched, unless she had found them, realized what they were, and hidden them before he could dispose of the evidence. I put the pill back in the bottle and shoved it into my pocket. I would need to get these tested. I had a buddy in the crime lab who owed me a favor. I reached back into the quilt. There was something else. Flat. Rectangular. I pulled out a small black notebook. It was one of those cheap pocket diaries you buy at the drugstore. I opened it. It was filled with Coretta's neat handwriting. It wasn't a diary of her thoughts. It was a ledger, dates, amounts, names, January 12th, withdrawal $5,000, not me. February 4th, withdrawal $3,000, Gavin's signature on the check. March 10th, jewelry missing, my diamond earrings. Gavin was here yesterday. I flipped through the pages. My hands started to sweat. April 2nd. I found the new insurance policy. He took it out in Zeke's name. Beneficiary is Kendra, but if Kendra dies, it goes to him. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just after me. He was setting up a domino effect. Me first, then Kendra. He was going to wipe out the whole family line. I turned to the last entry. It was dated the day before she died, May 15th. I found the pills in his jacket pocket while he was in the bathroom. They aren't my heart meds. I looked them up online. They cause cardiac arrest in high doses. He is going to kill me. I have to tell Zeke. I have to warn him. But if I tell him now, he will do something rash. He will hurt Gavin and go to jail. I need proof. I am hiding the pills. If anything happens to me, Zeke, check the quilt. I love you, old man. Don't let him win. I closed the book. Tears stung my eyes. She knew. She knew she was going to die, and she spent her last moments trying to protect me, trying to gather evidence. She sacrificed herself to catch him. I slammed my fist onto the table, making the coffee cup jump. I am not going to jail Coretta, I said to the empty room. I am going to send him there. Or I am going to send him straight to hell. I looked at the pill bottle and the notebook. This was a start. But it wasn't enough. A notebook could be faked. Pills could be anyone's. I needed undeniable proof. I needed to catch him in the act. I thought about the camera Gavin had probably set up in the house. He was watching me. He said so. If he was watching me, then two could play at that game. I stood up and walked to the pantry. I reached up to the top shelf behind the cans of beans and pulled down an old dusty box. Inside was my old surveillance kit. It was outdated but functional. Pinhole cameras, audio bugs, motion sensors. I wasn't a senile old man. I was a hunter. And I was about to turn my house into a trap. I spent the next 2 hours working in the dark, moving by memory and touch so Gavin wouldn't see anything unusual if he drove by. I hid a camera in the eyes of the teddy bear on the mantelpiece. I stuck an audio bug under the kitchen table. I placed a motion sensor near the back door. By the time the sun started to peek through the blinds, I was done. My house was wired. I sat back down in my recliner, the notebook hidden in my waistband, the pill bottle taped to the inside of my leg. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I waited. The war had started, and Gavin Miller had no idea he was fighting a man who had nothing left to lose. I heard a car pull up outside. It was early. Too early for a social call. I looked out the peephole. It was Gavin, alone. He was coming back, probably to find what he couldn't find last night. I unlocked the door and sat back down. I let my mouth hang open again. I stared blankly at the TV, which wasn't even on. The door opened. "Morning, Dad," Gavin said, breezing in like he owned the place. "Just wanted to bring you some breakfast." He held up a bag of bagels. He was smiling, but his eyes were scanning the room, looking for cracks, looking for weakness. I smiled back, a vacant, drooling smile. "Thanks, son," I mumbled. "Come in." "Step into my parlor," said the spider to the fly. He walked into the kitchen, right past the bug under the table. "Let the games begin." I watched him put the bagels on the counter. He started making coffee. He moved with a confidence that made my stomach churn. He thought he was the predator. He thought I was the prey. "Here, Dad," he said, handing me a mug. "Drink up. It will help you wake up." I took the mug. It smelled like coffee, but underneath the roast there was a faint chemical scent. Bitter. Almonds maybe, or maybe just poison. I brought the cup to my lips. I saw him watching me. His body was tense. He was waiting. I pretended to sip. Good, I said. He relaxed. So, Dad, he said, leaning against the counter. About the house. I really think we should call a realtor today, just to see what it is worth. No harm in asking, right? I looked at him. I looked at the man who killed my wife. Sure, son, I said. Whatever you think is best. He grinned. A wide shark-like grin. That is great, Dad. I will make the call. He pulled out his phone. He turned his back to me. I slowly poured the coffee into the plant pot next to my chair. The plant would be dead by tomorrow. But I would be alive, and I would be ready. I touched the notebook in my waistband. You made a mistake, Gavin. You left a witness, and this witness is going to burn your world to the ground. They moved in on a Tuesday. It was raining. The sky was the color of a bruised plum. I stood on the porch and watched Gavin carry boxes into my house. He moved with the arrogance of a man who had already won the war. He didn't ask where to put things. He just claimed space. My space. Coretta's space. Kendra followed him carrying a suitcase. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. She hugged me, but her body was stiff. We are here to help Dad, she said. Gavin is right. You shouldn't be alone in this big house. Not after the wedding incident. The wedding incident, that is what they called it. Not the moment I exposed a thief. Not the moment I heard my dead wife speak. Just an incident. An old man's embarrassing slip of sanity. For the first few days, they played the role of the perfect house guests. Gavin fixed a leaky faucet. Kendra cooked dinner. But the air in the house had changed. It was thick with tension. It felt like living in a cage with a tiger that was pretending to be a house cat. Then the games began. It started small. I always left my truck keys on the brass hook by the door. I have done it for 20 years. It is muscle memory. But on Thursday morning, the hook was empty. I searched the kitchen. I checked my pockets. Nothing. Gavin walked in, sipping coffee from one of Coretta's favorite mugs. What are you looking for, Zeke? He asked. My keys, I said. I hung them right there. Gavin shook his head slowly. A look of pity washed over his face. Dad, your keys are in the refrigerator. I saw them next to the milk jug earlier. I thought maybe you put them there to keep them cold. I stared at him. The refrigerator. I walked over and opened the door. There they were, sitting on the wire rack next to the carton of eggs, cold metal against my skin. I didn't put them there, I said. My voice sounded defensive even to my own ears. Of course you didn't, Gavin said soothingly, just like you didn't make a scene at the wedding. It is okay, Zeke. We all have bad days. He patted my shoulder. I flinched. 2 days later, it was the stove. I had made tea. I turned the burner off. I know I did. I heard the click. I saw the flame die. I went to the living room to read the paper. 10 minutes later, Kendra came running in. Dad. The gas. Are you trying to kill us? I rushed into the kitchen. The smell of gas was overpowering. The dial on the stove was turned all the way to high, but there was no flame. I turned it off, I stammered. I swear I turned it off. Kendra looked at me with tears in her eyes. She looked terrified. Dad. I walked in, and it was hissing. If I had lit a candle... God, Dad. Maybe Gavin is right. Maybe you really can't handle living here anymore. I looked at the stove. Then I looked at Gavin standing in the doorway. He wasn't looking at the stove. He was looking at me. His expression was blank. Dead. That night I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My hands were shaking. Was I losing it? Was the grief eating holes in my brain? Maybe I did put the keys in the fridge. Maybe I did leave the gas on. Stress does strange things to a man. Trauma breaks you down. I closed my eyes and I saw Coretta. I saw her falling down those stairs. I heard her voice on the phone. He switched the pills. My eyes snapped open. The doubt vanished. It was replaced by a cold, hard rage. No, I was not crazy. I was being hunted. Gaslighting, that is what they call it. It is a psychological war. You make the target question their own reality until they break, until they hand over the keys to the kingdom just to make the confusion stop. Gavin was good at it, but he forgot one thing. I used to catch people who faked injuries for insurance money. I used to catch people who burned down their own businesses. I knew the look of a staged scene. He wanted to play games. Fine, let us play. I waited until the next afternoon. Kendra was at work. Gavin had left to meet with some investors, which I knew was code for meeting his bookie or his mistress. I had the house to myself for 2 hours. I went to the garage. I dug out my old toolbox. Underneath a false bottom covered in greasy rags, I found my stash. It wasn't much, but it was enough. 2 pinhole cameras, wireless, battery-operated, motion-activated, and a high-gain microphone. I moved through the house with a speed that defied my age. My leg hurt, but I ignored it. Pain was just information. I went to the living room first. There was an old teddy bear on the bookshelf. Coretta had kept it since Kendra was a baby. It had black button eyes. I took my pocket knife and carefully slit the seam on the back of the bear's head. I hollowed out a small space in the stuffing. I inserted the camera unit. I positioned the lens right behind the button eye. I poked a tiny hole through the plastic button. Invisible. I sewed it back up. My hands were steady. Decades of fixing engines meant I knew how to be precise. One eye watching the living room. Next I went to the kitchen. This was the kill zone. This was where the gas incident happened. This was where he would make his move. I chose the top of the kitchen cabinets. There was a decorative vine Coretta had placed there years ago. Fake ivy. Dust catchers, she called them. I nestled the second camera into the leaves. I angled it down so it had a perfect view of the stove, the counter, and the refrigerator. I taped the microphone under the lip of the kitchen island. It would pick up a whisper from 10 feet away. I was just finishing up when I heard the sound of tires on gravel. Gavin. He was back early. I was standing on a chair in the middle of the kitchen. The toolbox was open on the table. Panic flared in my chest. If he saw this, it was over. He would know I wasn't the senile old fool he thought I was. He would know I was hunting him, and he would accelerate his timeline. I heard the car door slam. Footsteps on the porch. I grabbed the chair and shoved it back under the table. I threw a dish towel over the toolbox. The front door handle turned. I grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl and leaned against the counter, trying to slow my breathing. Gavin walked in. He stopped when he saw me. His eyes narrowed. He looked at the towel on the table. He looked at me. "What are you doing, Zeke?" he asked. I took a bite of the apple. It tasted like sawdust. "Just getting a snack," I said. I chewed slowly. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a fist. Gavin walked further into the room. He looked around. He looked up at the cabinets. My blood ran cold. Had I left a wire exposed? Was the lens reflecting light? He sniffed the air. "Smells like dust in here," he said. "I was cleaning," I said. "Coretta always hated the dust on those vines. Thought I would wipe them down." Gavin laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. "You are cleaning fake plants now, Jesus Seek. You really need a hobby. Or a nurse." He shook his head and walked past me to the fridge. He grabbed a beer. "Make sure you don't fall off a chair, old man," he said, taking a swig. "We don't want another accident." He walked out of the kitchen. I let out a breath I had been holding for a minute. My knees felt weak. That was too close. But the trap was set. Now all I had to do was wait. I spent the next 2 days being the perfect victim. I shuffled when I walked. I asked Kendra to repeat things. I let Gavin catch me staring blankly at the television. I fed his ego. I let him believe he was winning. Every night when they were asleep, I locked my bedroom door and opened my laptop. I connected to the secure cloud server where the cameras were uploading. The first day was boring. Just hours of them watching TV and Kendra complaining about her job. But the second day paid off. I watched the footage from the kitchen camera. It was stamped 10 o'clock a.m. Kendra was gone. Gavin walked into the frame. He was wearing his bathrobe. He looked relaxed. He was whistling. He opened the cupboard and took out my carton of almond milk. I drank almond milk because regular dairy upset my stomach. Coretta had gotten me hooked on it. He set the carton on the counter. Then he reached into the pocket of his robe. He pulled out a small plastic bag. I leaned closer to the screen. He took a heavy mortar and pestle from the shelf. He poured the contents of the bag into the mortar. It looked like white pills. He began to grind them. He ground them until they were a fine powder. Then he opened the almond milk. He funneled the powder into the carton. He shook it vigorously. He put the milk back in the fridge. He washed the mortar and pestle, drying it carefully and putting it back exactly where he found it. He picked up his phone. He dialed a number. The audio from the microphone under the island kicked in. It was crystal clear. "Hey babe," he said. His voice was different, lower, sexier. It wasn't the voice he used with Kendra. "Yeah, I am still stuck here. It is a nightmare. The old man is still kicking." He laughed. I know I promised. But he is tough. He is like a cockroach. I upped the dose today. Yeah, digoxin. It mimics heart failure. Hard to trace if they aren't looking for it." He paused, listening to the person on the other end. "Don't worry. A few more days and his heart will just give out. Then we sell the house, pay off the shark, and we are on a plane to Cabo. Just you and me. Kendra." "Please, she is a means to an end. Once the money is in my account, she can cry at the funeral alone." He hung up. He grabbed another beer and walked out of the frame. I sat there in the dark, illuminated only by the glow of the laptop screen. I replayed the video. I watched him grind the poison. I watched him shake the carton. I listened to him call my daughter a means to an end. I felt a cold calm settle over me. It was the calm of a soldier before battle, the calm of an executioner. He wasn't just gaslighting me. He wasn't just trying to make me think I was crazy. He was actively killing me, just like he killed Coretta. And he was planning to dump my daughter the moment he got the cash. I closed the laptop. I didn't feel fear anymore. I didn't feel confusion. I felt power. I had him. I had him on video. I had him on audio. I had the smoking gun. But I wasn't going to call the police. Not yet. Police take time. Police need warrants. Police might let him out on bail. And if he got out, he would disappear. Or he would come back and finish the job. No, this required a different kind of justice. I walked to my dresser and opened the bottom drawer. I moved aside the stacks of socks. Underneath was my old service pistol, a 1911 Colt. I checked the magazine. Full. I wasn't going to shoot him. That would be too easy, too quick. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to feel the walls closing in. I wanted him to know what it felt like to be the one losing his mind. He wanted to play games with my sanity fine. I put the gun back. Tomorrow morning he would offer me that milk, and tomorrow morning the game would change. I looked at the picture of Coretta on my nightstand. "I got him honey," I whispered. The hunter had just become the prey, and he didn't even know it yet. The morning sun hit the kitchen counter, illuminating the carton of almond milk like it was a holy relic. But I knew better. It was a weapon. I sat at the table, my hands resting on my knees, feeling the cold steel of the table leg against my shin. My leg throbbed, a constant reminder of the cliff, but the pain kept me sharp. Gavin walked in. He was dressed in a suit, sharp and expensive, the kind bought with money he did not earn. He looked like a man ready to close a deal. He opened the fridge and took out the carton, the same carton I had watched him poison the night before. "Morning, Dad," he said, his voice bright and chirpy. "You look tired. Did you sleep okay?" "I didn't sleep at all, son," I rasped, rubbing my eyes. "My stomach, it feels knots." Gavin's eyes lit up, just for a second, a flash of anticipation. He poured the milk into a glass. The white liquid swirled thick and creamy. It looked innocent. That was the scary part. Death didn't always look like a skull and crossbones. Sometimes it looked like breakfast. "Here," he said, placing the glass in front of me. "This will settle your stomach. Almond milk is good for digestion. Drink up." I looked at the glass. I looked at him. He was leaning against the counter watching me. He wasn't even pretending to make his own coffee. He just wanted to see me take that sip. He wanted to see the beginning of the end. I lifted the glass. My hand trembled. This part was not acting. My body knew what was in there, even if my brain was telling it to play along. The smell hit me again. Almonds and chemicals. I brought it to my lips. I tilted the glass. I let the liquid touch my tongue just enough to make it look real. Then I convulsed. I jerked forward, coughing violently. I grabbed the napkin from the table and buried my face in it, spitting the milk out into the folds of the paper before I could swallow a drop. I retched, making the sound loud and wet. "Oh, God," I groaned, clutching my stomach with one hand and keeping the napkin pressed to my mouth with the other. Gavin took a step back, a look of disgust crossing his face. "Jesus, Zeke. Try not to make a mess," he muttered. "I cannot," I gasped, squeezing my eyes shut. "It hurts. It burns." I let my body slump forward. my forehead resting on the table. I dropped the napkin into my lap, folding it quickly to hide the liquid. "I think I need to lie down," I whispered. Gavin stood over me. I could feel his gaze. He was assessing. He was calculating. "Go lie down," then he said, his voice cold. "I have a meeting. I will check on you later." He didn't offer to help me up. He didn't offer to call a doctor. He just watched me struggle to my feet, clutching my stomach, shuffling toward the hallway. "Good luck, Dad," he called out as I reached the door. I went to my room and slammed the door. I locked it. I went straight to the bathroom and rinsed my mouth out with water, spitting until my throat was raw. I checked my pupils in the mirror. Normal. I hadn't swallowed enough to do damage. I waited 5 minutes. I heard the front door open and close. I heard his car start. He was gone. He thought the poison was working. He thought I would be dead or in a coma by the time he got back. He was wrong. I changed my clothes quickly, putting on my old Mechanic S jacket. I grabbed my cane, I grabbed the folder of documents I had prepared weeks ago, and I grabbed a very specific piece of paper from my safe. I slipped out the back door, moving through the garden Coretta loved so much. I didn't take my truck. He might have tracked it. I walked 2 blocks to the bus stop. I was in pain, my ribs aching with every step, but I forced myself to move. I had to get to the bank before he did. First National Bank was a fortress of marble and glass in the center of town. I had banked there for 40 years. I knew the tellers. I knew the manager. I knew the smell of the old air conditioning unit. I walked in, keeping my head down. I went straight to the safety deposit box viewing area. I needed to check the deed to the house. I needed to make sure it was still there. Mrs. Higgins, the head teller, smiled when she saw me. "Mr. Harper," she said, coming around the counter. "We haven't seen you in a while. How are you holding up?" "I am managing, Mrs. Higgins," I said, leaning heavily on my cane. "I just need to check my box. Of course, right this way." She led me to the steel gate. She was reaching for her keys when the front doors of the bank burst open. "Stop right there!" the voice boomed across the lobby. I froze. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Gavin. He was striding across the marble floor, his footsteps echoing like gunshots. But he wasn't alone. Walking beside him was a man I had never seen before. A white man in a cheap suit with slicked back hair and a briefcase that looked like it was made of shark skin. He had the eyes of a coyote. "Dad, what do you think you are doing?" Gavin shouted, closing the distance between us. "You are in no condition to be out." He grabbed my arm, spinning me around. His grip was bruising. I looked at him, blinking rapidly, playing the confused old man. "I just wanted to see the papers, son," I stammered. "The house papers." Mrs. Higgins looked between us, alarmed. "Is there a problem, Mr. Harper?" "Yes, there is a problem," the shark in the suit said, stepping forward. He thrust a document into Mrs. Higgins' face. "I am Silas Vane, attorney at law, representing Mr. Gavin Miller. This is a notarized power of attorney granting Mr. Miller full control over Mr. Ezekiel Harper's assets, including his safety deposit box and all bank accounts." Mrs. Higgins took the paper. She adjusted her glasses. "I see," she said slowly. "Mr. Harper, is this true? Did you sign this?" I looked at the paper. It was a forgery. A good one, but a forgery. Or maybe it was the paper I had signed blindly the night he threatened me in the garage. It didn't matter. I don't remember, I mumbled, looking down at my shoes. I signed so many things. My head is foggy. "Mr. Harper has been diagnosed with early onset dementia," Vane said, his voice smooth and loud. "He is a danger to himself and his estate. We are here to secure his assets before he loses them or is taken advantage of." Mrs. Higgins looked at me with pity. She looked at Gavin with suspicion. "I will need to verify this with our legal department," she said. "It will take time." "We don't have time," Gavin snapped. He slammed his hand on the counter, making the pens jump. "My father-in-law is trying to steal the deed to a house he can no longer manage. We need access to that box now, or I will sue this bank for negligence and obstruction." He was causing a scene. People were staring. He was using his size, his voice, his whiteness to intimidate a 60-year-old black woman doing her job. Mrs. Higgins looked flustered. "Sir, please lower your voice." "Open the box," Vane demanded, "or we call the police and have Mr. Harper detained for his own safety." "Police!" That was the magic word. If the police came, they would see a confused old man and a well-dressed son-in-law with a lawyer. They would take me to the hospital. And once I was in the system, Gavin would win. I had to act. I had to lose the battle to win the war. I let out a low moan and sagged against the counter. Okay, I said, my voice trembling. Just let him have it. I don't want any trouble. I just want to go home." Gavin smirked. A triumphant, nasty smirk. "That is better, Dad. Now tell the lady to give us access." I looked at Mrs. Higgins. I tried to telegraph a message with my eyes, but I had to keep up the act. "Let him in, Mrs. Higgins," I whispered. I authorize it." She frowned but nodded. She handed a form across the counter. "I need you to sign here, Mr. Harper, confirming you are granting access today." I took the pen. My hand shook violently. I bent over the paper. I didn't sign Ezekiel Harper. I signed E.Z. Harper. The letters were jagged, uneven. It looked like the signature of a man whose mind was gone. But more importantly, it did not match the signature card they had on file. Gavin didn't notice. He was too busy staring at the steel door of the vault, greed practically dripping from his pores. I pushed the paper back to Mrs. Higgins. And then, under the cover of my sleeve, I slid a small, folded piece of red construction paper across the marble. It was the size of a business card. On it, I had written 3 numbers. 911. This was the Red Protocol. 10 years ago, when I was investigating high-level insurance fraud, I had uncovered a ring of identity thieves targeting banks. I had helped First National upgrade their security protocols. As a thank you, the regional manager gave me a fail-safe, a panic button for my own accounts. If I ever presented a red card or a specific code, it meant I was under duress. It meant I was being coerced. It meant lock everything down, freeze it, burn the bridge. Mrs. Higgins saw the red corner of the paper. Her eyes flicked to mine. I gave a microscopic nod. She didn't blink. She didn't gasp. She was a professional. She slid the red paper under her keyboard along with the form. "Very well," she said, her voice cool and detached. "I will take you back now." She buzzed the gate open. Gavin pushed past me, almost knocking me over. Vane followed him like a hungry dog. "You stay here, Dad." Gavin threw over his shoulder. "Don't wander off." I watched them disappear into the vault. Mrs. Higgins typed furiously on her keyboard. I heard the heavy clack of the enter key. "Done," she whispered without looking at me. What just happened inside the system was invisible but catastrophic for Gavin. Every account linked to my name was instantly frozen. The safety deposit box they were opening contained the deed, yes, but the deed was useless without the ability to transfer it. And any attempt to move funds, any attempt to change ownership would trigger a federal fraud alert. Gavin was walking into a trap. He was going to grab the deed thinking he held the keys to the kingdom. But when he tried to use it, when he tried to access the accounts, he would find out that he was locked out. And because he was using a fake power of attorney and a shady lawyer, the fraud alert would flag him personally. He came out 5 minutes later holding a thick envelope. He was beaming. "Got it," he said to Vane. He looked at me. "Let's go, old man. We are taking you home. And then we are going to have a long talk about your living arrangements." He thought he had won. He thought he had stripped me of everything. I shuffled after him, leaning on my cane, letting him lead me out of the bank. I looked back at Mrs. Higgins. She gave me a small, almost imperceptible wink. "You have the paper, Gavin. You have the envelope. But you don't have the money. And you don't have me." As we walked out into the bright sunlight, I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. He had taken the bait. He had swallowed the hook. Now I just had to reel him in. The drive home was silent. Gavin was texting furiously, probably telling Kendra or his bookie that he had the assets. I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets pass by. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw a strange car parked at the curb. It was a beat-up sedan, rusted at the wheel wells. Gavin frowned. "Who is that?" he muttered. I knew who it was. I had made a call from the hotel the day before. I reached for the door handle. "I think that is for me," I said, dropping the senile act for just a second. Gavin looked at me, surprised by the change in my tone. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I opened the door and stepped out. The pain in my leg was gone, replaced by the cold fire of adrenaline. I turned back to look at him. I said, "I think my ride is here, Gavin, and you might want to check your bank balance. I hear there is a glitch in the system today." I slammed the door before he could answer and started walking toward the sedan where my old friend Strickland was waiting with a smile that said it was time to go to war. I watched Gavin's sleek black car disappear down the winding driveway. He was heading to meet with his lawyer to figure out why his access to my accounts had been blocked. He thought it was a technical glitch. He thought he could fix it with a few angry phone calls. He had no idea he was already in the spider web. But his absence gave me a window. A small, fragile window of time to save the only thing in this world that still mattered to me, my daughter. Kendra was in the living room. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes. She was packing up Coretta-esque collection of porcelain figurines. My wife had loved those things. She dusted them every Sunday. Now Kendra was wrapping them in newspaper and shoving them into cardboard boxes like they were trash. I walked into the room. My cane tapped against the hardwood floor. The sound was a metronome counting down the seconds of my life. "Kendra," I said softly. She didn't look up. She kept wrapping a shepherdess figurine. Her movements were jerky and aggressive. "What is it, Dad?" she asked. Her voice was tight. "Gavin said you need to rest. You had a big day at the bank." "Gavin is a liar, Kendra," I said. I moved closer. I reached into my waistband and pulled out the small black notebook I had cut out of the quilt. The leather was warm from my body heat. She finally looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked exhausted. She looked like a woman who was drowning but refusing to grab the life preserver. "What is that?" she asked, eyeing the book. "It is your mother's diary," I said. "I found it hidden in the blue quilt, the one she made for you." Kendra frowned. "Mom didn't keep a diary. She told me she hated writing things down. She started one," I said, "because she was scared, because she knew something was wrong." I held the book out to her. My hand was steady. "Read it, Kendra. Just read the last entry. Please." She hesitated. For a second, I saw the little girl who used to trust me to catch her when she jumped off the porch swing. She reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed the worn leather cover. She took the book. She opened it. She flipped through the pages. I watched her eyes scan the dates and the numbers. I saw the confusion cloud her face. "This is Mom's handwriting," she whispered. "Read May 15th, I urged, the day before she died." Kendra turned the page. Her lips moved silently as she read the words Coretta had written in fear and desperation. The words about the pills. The words about Gavin. I waited for the shock. I waited for the horror. I waited for her to look at me and say, "Oh my God, Dad, you were right." Instead, her face hardened. It was like watching a steel door slam shut. She closed the book with a snap. She looked at me and her eyes were cold. "You wrote this," she said. I stepped back as if she had slapped me. "What?" I gasped. "Kendra, look at the handwriting. Look at the details." "I know Mama's handwriting," she said, standing up. "But I also know you. You have been obsessed with ruining Gavin since the day I brought him home. You forged this." "Kendra, that is insane," I said, my voice rising. "Why would I do that? Why would I use your mother-esque memory like that?" "Because you are jealous," she shouted. The accusation hung in the air. It was ugly and raw. "You are jealous because he is young and successful, and he is taking care of me in a way you never could," she continued, her voice shaking with rage. "And you hate him because he is white." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. What I whispered. "Gavin told me," she said. "He told me how you look at him. He told me about the comments you make when you think no one is listening. You cannot stand that I married a white man. You think he is stealing your heritage or some nonsense. You are a bitter, prejudiced old man." I stared at my daughter, my beautiful, smart daughter. She was parroting his words. I could hear Gavin-esque cadence in her voice. I could hear his poison dripping from her lips. He had twisted everything. My caution he called prejudice. My protection he called jealousy. He had weaponized my own identity against me. "Kendra, I marched in the 60s, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed emotion. I bled for equality. I judged that man on his character, not his skin. And his character is rotten. He is a thief and a murderer." "Stop it!" she screamed. She raised her arm and threw the notebook. It flew past my head and hit the wall with a dull thud. It landed open on the floor, the pages crinkled. Coretta's voice lay there, ignored and discarded by the daughter she died protecting. "You are toxic, Dad," she spat the word out. "You are poisoning this house. You are trying to destroy my marriage because you are lonely and miserable." Mom fell. It was an accident. Gavin tried to save her. He cried for days. And you are trying to frame him. She was crying now, angry, hot tears. "He is trying to help you," she sobbed. "He is trying to get you settled. He is trying to secure our future. And you treat him like a criminal. I am ashamed of you." I looked at her. I really looked at her. I saw the fear behind the anger. She was terrified. Deep down she knew something was wrong. But admitting it would mean her entire life was a lie. It would mean she was sleeping next to a monster. It was easier to blame me. It was easier to make me the villain. Kendra, I said softly, I am not the one lying to you. Check the accounts. Just check your own savings. I don't have to check anything, she yelled. I trust my husband. Unlike you, I know what love is. The front door opened. We both froze. Gavin walked in. He looked flustered. His tie was loosened. The bank issue must have rattled him. But the moment he stepped into the living room and saw Kendra's tears, his expression changed. He didn't look at me. He went straight to her. Baby, what is wrong? He asked, rushing to her side and pulling her into his arms. He looked over her shoulder at me. His eyes were flat and hard. What did you do to her, Zeke? I didn't do anything, I said. I tried to tell her the truth. Kendra buried her face in Gavin's chest. He made a fake diary. Gavin, she sobbed into his shirt. He tried to say, you killed Mom. He called you a murderer. Gavin stroked her hair. He made a shushing sound. He looked at me with a mixture of triumph and mock disappointment. Oh, Zeke, he sighed, shaking his head. I knew you were struggling, but this is a new low. Forging documents. Accusing family members. This is the dementia talking, isn't it? He wasn't asking, he was stating it for the record. It is not dementia, Gavin, I said, my voice cold steel. It is evidence, and you can't gaslight a man who sees in the dark. Gavin ignored me. He pulled Kendra closer. I am so sorry you had to hear that, baby, he cooed. Your dad is not well. The doctor warned us about this. Paranoia, aggression, fabricating stories. It is the disease. He was smooth. I had to give him that. He took my attempt to save her and turned it into the final nail in my coffin. Kendra pulled away from him and wiped her eyes. She looked at me. There was no love left in her gaze, only exhaustion and resolve. I cannot do this anymore, Dad, she said. She took a deep breath. Gavin showed me the brochures last night for the facility, Sunny Meadows. My heart went cold. Sunny Meadows was a warehouse for the dying. It was where people sent relatives they wanted to forget. I told him no, she continued. I told him I wanted to keep you here. I wanted to take care of you. But I was wrong. She stepped closer to Gavin, aligning herself with him against me. A united front. You are dangerous, Dad. You are mentally unstable. And you are cruel. She pointed a shaking finger at me. This is your last warning. If you say one more word about Gavin, if you tell one more lie about my mother's death, I will sign the papers. I will put you in that home tonight. And I will never visit you. The threat hung in the air, heavy and final. She meant it. He had twisted her mind so thoroughly that she saw her protector as her abuser. I looked at the notebook lying on the floor. I looked at Gavin's smug face peeking out from behind my daughter's shoulder. I realized then that I had lost her. Not to death, but to something worse. I had lost her to him. If I kept pushing now, she would lock me away. And if I was locked away, I couldn't stop him. I couldn't get justice for Coretta. I had to retreat. I had to accept the defeat of this battle to stay alive for the war. I lowered my head. I let my shoulders slump. I let the old man take over again. I am sorry, Kendra, I mumbled, looking at my feet. I miss her so much. Sometimes I get confused. Gavin smiled. It was the smile of a shark that just tasted blood. See, baby, he said, kissing her forehead. He doesn't mean it. He is just sick. Kendra let out a long, shuddering breath. Go to your room, Dad, she said. Just go to your room. We will talk about this tomorrow. I nodded. I turned around and shuffled toward the hallway, leaning heavily on my cane. I walked past the notebook. I wanted to pick it up. I wanted to salvage the last piece of my wife. But I left it there. Gavin would burn it. I knew that. He would burn it and flush the ashes. But he didn't know I had already photographed every single page. I walked into my bedroom and closed the door. I didn't lock it. That would seem suspicious. I sat on the edge of the bed. I felt hollowed out. My own daughter hated me. She thought I was a racist, senile monster. But as I sat there in the dark listening to them murmur in the living room, the resolve in my gut hardened into diamond. I was alone now. Truly alone. No allies in this house. No daughter to protect me. Good. I worked better alone. I pulled out my burner phone, the one I had bought at the convenience store along with the camera equipment. I dialed a number I hadn't called in 20 years. It rang twice. Strickland Law Offices, a gruff voice answered. Frank, it is Zeke, I said. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. Zeke Harper, I thought you were dead. Not yet, Frank, I said, but I need a favor. I need you to write a will. A very specific kind of will. What kind, Frank asked. The kind that acts like a landmine, I said. I looked at the door. I could hear Gavin laughing. He was probably celebrating. Laugh while you can, son, I whispered. Because tomorrow, you are going to step on the trigger. I backed my old Ford truck out of the driveway just as the sun began to dip below the horizon. The engine purred with a familiar rumble that usually calmed my nerves. I needed to see Strickland. I needed to set the legal trap that would snap Gavin S.'s neck. I turned onto the main road that wound down the hill toward the city. It was a steep descent with sharp curves and a drop-off that looked straight down into the rocky ravine below. I had driven this road 1,000 times. I knew every pothole. I knew every twist. I accelerated slightly to make the first bend. The speedometer climbed to 40. I saw the hairpin turn approaching. I lifted my foot off the gas and pressed the brake pedal. It went all the way to the floor. There was no resistance, no friction, just a sickening, hollow thump as the pedal hit the metal floorboard. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pumped the brakes. Once, twice, 3 times, nothing. 3 times. The truck was picking up speed, 50, 55. The guardrail was coming up fast. Behind it was a 100-foot drop. He cut the lines. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Gavin hadn't just tampered with my mind. He had tampered with my truck. He wanted me dead on the road. An old man who lost control on a winding turn. A tragic accident. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Panic tried to seize my throat, but I shoved it down. I wasn't just a mechanic. In my 20s, I had run stock cars on dirt tracks in Georgia. I knew how to handle a machine that wanted to kill me. I didn't scream. I didn't close my eyes. I watched the road. The curve was seconds away. If I tried to take it at this speed, I would flip over the rail. If I tried to use the emergency brake at this velocity, I would spin out and go over anyway. I had to crash, but I had to choose where. To my right was the cliff. To my left was a dense thicket of oak trees and scrub brush. It was a wall of wood and leaves. It would hurt. It might kill me, but the cliff was a guarantee. I made my choice. I wrenched the wheel hard to the left. The tires screamed in protest. The truck fishtailed violently. I fought the slide, correcting with a precision born of muscle memory I thought I had lost decades ago. The truck careened off the asphalt. We hit the dirt shoulder. Dust exploded around the windshield. The world turned into a blur of green and brown. I braced myself against the seat, jamming my legs against the firewall. Impact. The sound was like a bomb going off. Metal shrieked as it tore against bark. The windshield shattered into a million diamonds. The airbag deployed, hitting me in the face with the force of a heavyweight boxer. Then silence. Hissing steam. The smell of radiator fluid and pine needles. The taste of blood in my mouth. I sat there for a moment, gasping for air. My chest felt like it had been crushed. Blood trickled down my forehead into my left eye, stinging and hot. I was alive. I unbuckled my seatbelt with shaking hands. I kicked the door open. It groaned and resisted, but finally gave way. I fell out onto the damp earth. I crawled to the front of the truck. I looked underneath. Even in the dim light, I could see it. The brake line hadn't burst. It had been sliced clean. A neat surgical cut. I took a picture with my burner phone. My hand was steady now. Cold. You missed Gavin. You missed. I didn't call a tow truck. I didn't call the police. That would alert him. I limped through the woods until I reached the lower road. I flagged down a taxi. I looked like a madman, blood on my face, clothes torn, but the driver didn't ask questions when I showed him a $100 bill. Take me to the Rusty Anchor, I said. The Rusty Anchor was a dive bar on the south side, the kind of place where the floor is sticky and the patrons don't make eye contact. It was perfect. Strickland was sitting in a booth in the back, nursing a bourbon. He looked exactly the same as he did in the army, tough-scarred and immovable. He wore a cheap suit that barely contained his shoulders. He looked up as I approached. He saw the blood on my head. He didn't flinch. Rough commute, Zeke, he asked, sliding a glass toward me. Brakes failed, I said, sliding into the booth. Or rather, they were helped to fail. Strickland's eyes narrowed. He took a sip of his drink. The son-in-law. I nodded. He is escalating. He tried to gaslight me first. Now he is trying to erase me. I pulled the folder from my jacket. It was bent, but the papers inside were dry. We need to do this, Frank, tonight. I need the trap will. Strickland opened the folder. He put on a pair of reading glasses that looked ridiculous on his battered face. He scanned the documents I had prepared. The list of assets, the account numbers, the evidence of Gavin S. debts. You are playing a dangerous game, Zeke, he said quietly. This guy isn't just a greedy opportunist. I ran his name like you asked. He is deep in the hole with the Russian mob. $2 million deep. I leaned forward. 2 million. Yeah. He borrowed big to play tech startup genius. The startup failed. The Russians didn't. They want their money. That is why he is so desperate. That is why he is killing you. He is on a clock. If he doesn't pay them by the end of the month, they are going to peel him like an orange. It made sense. The urgency, the sloppiness, he was terrified. That gives us leverage, I said. It gives you a target on your back, Strickland corrected. He is a cornered animal, and he is not working alone. I found payments to a Dr. Aris, and a notary. He is building a team to bury you legally and physically. Let him try, I said. Write the will, Frank. Will. Strickland took a pen from his pocket. He started drafting on a legal pad. Okay, here's the play. We draft a new will. It revokes all previous wills. It leaves everything to Kendra, but it puts it in a trust managed by a third party. Me. Gavin cannot touch a dime. But here's the trap. We include a clause. The Terrorem clause. If anyone contests the will, they lose everything. And we add a codicil. A specific list of assets that only you know about. The real assets. The ones Gavin doesn't know exist. And the house I asked. The house stays in your name until you die, Strickland said. But we draft a transfer deed. A fake one. You let him find it. You let him think he forced you to sign it. But we date it for yesterday, before the doctors declared you competent. If he tries to use it, it proves he coerced a man he claimed was senile. It invalidates his own argument. It was brilliant. It used his own lies against him. Do it, I said. Strickland wrote for 20 minutes. The bar noise washed over us. When he was done, he pushed the papers toward me. Sign here, and here. I signed. Now go home, Strickland said. Let him think he is winning. Let him get cocky. Cocky men make mistakes. I stood up. My head was pounding. My ribs felt like broken glass. Thanks, Frank. Don't thank me yet, Zeke. Just don't die. I took a cab back to the neighborhood, but I had the driver drop me a block away. I walked the rest of the distance. The night was dark, moonless. I walked up the driveway. My truck was gone, obviously, but Gavin S. car was there. The house was quiet. I opened the front door. Gavin was sitting at the kitchen table. He was cleaning a gun, a Glock 19. He looked up when I walked in. He saw the blood on my forehead. He saw the limp. He didn't look surprised. He looked disappointed. You are hard to kill, old man, he said softly. He placed the gun on the table. The metal clicked against the wood. I walked into the kitchen. I didn't say anything. I went to the sink and poured a glass of water. I drank it slowly, watching him. Where is the truck, Zeke? He asked. Ditch, I said. Brakes went out. Must be an old hose. Gavin laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Yeah, old hose. Everything around here is old, Zeke. The house, the truck, you. It is all falling apart. It is time for an upgrade. Time to replace the obsolete models. He picked up a piece of paper from the table. He slid it across the surface toward me. Sit down, Zeke. I sat. The chair scraped against the floor. What is this? I asked, looking at the document. It is a quitclaim deed, Gavin said. It transfers the title of this house to Kendra and me. Effective immediately. I looked at him. I cannot sign this, Gavin. This is my home. It was your home, he corrected. Now it is an asset. An asset I need. He picked up the gun again. He didn't point it at me, he just held it. He weighed it in his hand. You know, Zeke, dementia is a tragic thing. People get confused. They get depressed. Sometimes they realize they are a burden to their family. Sometimes they go out to the garage and turn on the car engine with the door closed. Sometimes they play with guns they don't understand. He looked me in the eye. The threat was explicit. Sign the house over or commit suicide. Kendra won't believe it, I said. Kendra believes what I tell her to believe, he said. She thinks you are losing your mind. She thinks you are dangerous. If you die tonight, she will cry, but she will be relieved. She will think it was a mercy. My rage boiled hot and fierce. He was talking about my daughter. He was talking about my life. But I remembered Strickland's words. Let him think he is winning. I let my shoulders slump. I let my hand tremble. I let the fear show on my face. Please, Gavin, I whispered. I don't want to die. Then sign the paper, he said, pushing a pen toward me. I picked up the pen. I am right-handed. I have been right-handed for 70 years. Gavin knew that. He had seen me work on cars. He had seen me eat. But in his arrogance, he wasn't paying attention to my hands. He was paying attention to the deed. I switched the pen to my left hand. I gripped it awkwardly. I pressed the tip to the paper. I signed Ezekiel Harper. The signature was shaky. It was jagged. It looked nothing like my real signature. It looked like the scrawl of a man who was either having a stroke or was being forced to sign something against his will. It was legally worthless. It was proof of duress. I pushed the paper back to him. Gavin snatched it up. He looked at the signature. He smiled. He didn't notice the hand. He just saw the victory. "Good boy, Zeke," he said, standing up. He tucked the gun into his waistband. "You made the right choice. Now go to bed. Get some sleep. You have a big day tomorrow. We are moving you to the guest room downstairs. I need the master bedroom. It has better light." He walked out of the kitchen whistling. I sat there in the silence listening to his footsteps on the stairs. My left hand was cramping. My head was bleeding. But I smiled. "You think you took my house, Gavin. You think you took my dignity. But you just took the bait. And now you are trapped in here with me." The house that I had paid for with 40 years of grease and sweat was no longer mine. Tonight it had been transformed into a stage for Gavin S. Vanity. He called it the Harper Foundation Charity Gala, a fundraiser for Alzheimer's research. It was a sick joke. He was using my alleged dementia to launder money and court new investors to pay off the Russians. I sat in a wheelchair in the corner of the living room. I didn't need the chair. My leg was healing and I could walk with my cane, but Gavin insisted. He said it garnered more sympathy. He said it made me look distinguished. What he meant was that it made me look weak. It made me a prop, a silent accessory to his grand performance. The room was filled with strangers, wealthy white investors from the city people who would never step foot in this neighborhood unless they thought they were saving it. They drank champagne out of my crystal glasses and ate canapes off silver trays, while looking at me with that specific kind of pity reserved for dying pets. Gavin was in his element. He wore a white tuxedo jacket that shone under the rented chandeliers. He moved through the crowd like a politician, shaking hands, touching elbows, laughing that practiced laugh that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. He stood by the fireplace. My fireplace, the one I built with bricks from the old schoolhouse. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, raising a glass. "Your generosity tonight is overwhelming. We are not just raising money, we are raising hope. Hope for families like ours who struggle with the slow fading of a loved one." He gestured toward me. The spotlight hit my face, blinding me. My father-in-law, Zeke Harper, is the inspiration for all of this. He is a fighter. But every day he slips a little further away from us. It breaks my heart, but it also fuels my fire. "We will find a cure." Applause rippled through the room. Kendra stood next to him, wiping a tear from her eye. She believed him. She believed he was the saint, and I was the tragedy. I gripped the armrest of the wheelchair. I wanted to stand up and scream the truth. I wanted to tell them that the only thing fading in this house was the money in my bank account. I wanted to tell them that the man in the white jacket was a butcher. But I sat still. I let my head loll to the side. I let a little drool gather at the corner of my mouth. I played the part. Because tonight was not about pride. Tonight was about access. Gavin needed investors because the Russians were closing in. He was desperate. And desperate men made mistakes. He had turned my house into a circus, which meant the security on his home office was lax. I just needed a distraction, a big one. And right on cue, the front door banged open. It wasn't a guest. It was Mrs. Odessa. She lived 3 houses down. She was 75 years old, built like a tank, and had served as a combat nurse in Korea. She didn't take nonsense from anyone, and tonight she was my secret weapon. She marched into the room wearing her Sunday best, a bright yellow hat with a fake sunflower the size of a dinner plate. She looked completely out of place among the black ties and evening gowns. She looked like a hurricane making landfall. "Where is the open bar?" she shouted, her voice booming over the polite jazz music. The room went silent. Guests parted like the Red Sea as she stomped toward the center of the room. Gavin's smile faltered. He looked at Kendra, then back at Odessa. He stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Ma'am, I think you have the wrong house. This is a private event." "Private, my foot," Odessa yelled. She grabbed a glass of red wine from a passing waiter's tray. She downed half of it in one gulp, allowing a trickle of crimson to run down her chin. She looked deranged. It was a magnificent performance. "I know who you are, Gavin Miller," she slurred, pointing a finger at him. "You are the man who put my friend in a wheelchair." Gavin's face went pale. He tried to laugh it off. "I think you have had enough to drink, ma'am. Security, please escort this lady out." 2 rented security guards started to move toward her. Odessa didn't back down. She lunged forward. She stumbled, pretending to trip on the rug. The contents of her wineglass went flying. The dark red liquid splashed across Gavin's pristine white tuxedo jacket. It looked like a gunshot wound. It looked like blood. Gavin gasped, looking down at the stain spreading across his chest. The crowd gasped with him. Odessa grabbed his lapels to steady herself. She pulled him close. It looked like a drunken embrace to the room, but I saw her lips move. I knew what she was saying because I told her what to say. She whispered, "I saw you under the truck, Gavin. I saw you cut the lines." Gavin froze. His eyes bulged. For a second, the charm evaporated. The fear took over. He wasn't looking at a drunk old woman anymore. He was looking at a witness. "Get her out!" he shrieked, pushing her away violently. "Get her out of here now!" The security guards grabbed Odessa. She started screaming, kicking, flailing her arms. "Murderer!" she yelled as they dragged her toward the door. "You are a murderer!" Chaos erupted. Guests were whispering, pointing, looking at Gavin with shock. Kendra was trying to calm people down. Gavin was frantically trying to wipe the wine off his jacket, looking like he wanted to vomit. Nobody was looking at the old man in the wheelchair. This was my moment. I pushed myself up. My legs were stiff, but they held. I grabbed my cane, which I had hidden along the side of the chair. I slipped into the shadows of the hallway. The noise of the party covered the sound of my footsteps. I moved fast, faster than I had moved in years. I went straight to the study. The door was closed, but not locked. Gavin was too arrogant to lock doors in his own house, especially when he thought I was immobilized. I slipped inside and closed the door softly behind me. The room smelled of cigar smoke and arrogance. It used to be my room. My books were gone, replaced by framed articles about Gavin's failed startups. I went to the desk. His laptop was open. Of course it was. He was probably checking his bank accounts between speeches, trying to move the money he thought he had stolen. The screen was locked. I pulled a small USB drive from my pocket. It wasn't just storage. It was a keylogger tool I had kept from my investigator days, updated by a hacker friend of mine. I plugged it in. The screen flickered. A command prompt opened. Code scrolled down the screen, green text on black. I waited. My heart hammered against my ribs. Outside, I could hear the muffled sounds of the party trying to restart. I heard Gavin's voice, high-pitched and strained, trying to explain away the crazy neighbor. He would be coming back here soon to change his jacket. I had maybe 3 minutes. The screen flashed. Access granted. I was in. I didn't waste time looking at the files. I just started copying. I dragged everything. The financial folders, the hidden directories, the chat logs. I saw a folder labeled offshore. I dragged it. I saw a folder labeled pharma. I dragged it. I saw an app running in the background. An encrypted chat service. I opened it. The most recent conversation was with a user named Kitten. Gavin. The old man is still breathing. The poison isn't working fast enough. Kitten. Just use the pillow. Do it tonight. We need the money, Gavin. The Russians are going to break your legs. Gavin. I cannot do it with Kendra here. She is watching him like a hawk. Kitten. Then get rid of her too. An accident. A gas leak. Just finish it. My hand shook as I took a picture of the screen with my burner phone. Kitten was his mistress, and she was urging him to kill my daughter. The download bar crawled across the screen. 70%. 80%. I heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. Zeke Kendra's voice. Dad, where are you? She was looking for me. 90%. The doorknob turned. I yanked the USB drive out. I closed the laptop lid. I dove for the leather armchair in the corner. I threw my cane behind it. I slumped into the seat, my head, lolling back, my mouth open. The door opened. Gavin walked in. He wasn't wearing his jacket. His shirt was stained pink. He looked furious. He stopped when he saw me. "What the hell are you doing in here, Zeke?" he snapped. I blinked slowly, looking around with confusion. The noise, I mumbled. Too much noise. I wanted quiet. Gavin stared at me. He looked at the laptop. It was closed exactly as he left it. He looked back at me. He walked over and grabbed my arm, hauling me out of the chair. "You are not supposed to be in here," he hissed. "You are supposed to be in your chair." He dragged me toward the door. I stumbled, leaning my weight on him, making him support me. I missed Coretta. I whimpered. I thought she was in here. Gavin shoved me into the hallway. "She is dead, Zeke. Get that through your thick skull." She is dead, and you are going to join her soon if you don't stop wandering off." He marched me back to the living room and shoved me back into the wheelchair. "Stay," he commanded, like I was a dog. He turned and went back into the study, slamming the door. I sat there gripping the armrests. I felt the cool plastic of the USB drive in my pocket. I had the ledger. I had the chats. I had the proof that he was laundering money and planning a double homicide. I looked across the room at Kendra. She was apologizing to a donor, looking stressed and unhappy. "I am sorry, baby girl," I thought. "This is going to hurt." But I had the ammunition now. I had the silver bullet. Gavin came back out wearing a fresh jacket. He smiled at the crowd. He raised his glass again. "To family," he said. I touched the drive in my pocket. "To family," I whispered, "and to the end of you." The phone buzzed in my hand, warm against my palm. I sat on the edge of the narrow guest bed, the only piece of furniture Gavin hadn't threatened to sell yet. I unlocked the screen. It was a message from Marcus, my contact at the crime lab. He was a good man, a man who owed me his career after I helped him out of a jam 10 years ago. He didn't ask questions. He just delivered results. The attachment was a PDF. I opened it, my eyes scanning the technical jargon until I found the summary at the bottom. Substance analysis. Identified as digoxin. Concentration 50 milligrams per tablet. Note: standard therapeutic dose is 0.125 milligrams. Lethal toxicity likely with single ingestion. I stopped breathing for a moment. 50 milligrams. Coretta S pills were supposed to be 0.125. Gavin hadn't just tampered with her medication. He had replaced it with a concentrated poison. He had turned her medicine cabinet into a firing squad. I closed my eyes, and I could see her face the last time I saw her alive. She had complained about seeing halos around the lights. She said her stomach hurt. She said her heart felt like it was fluttering like a trapped bird. Those were the symptoms of digoxin toxicity. She was telling me she was dying, and I didn't know. I gave her tea. I told her to rest. A cold fury settled in my chest, replacing the grief. It was a solid, heavy thing. This wasn't manslaughter. This wasn't negligence. This was premeditated, cold-blooded murder. He watched her swallow those pills. He watched her die. And then he pushed her down the stairs to cover up the cause of death. I saved the file to 3 different cloud servers. This was the smoking gun. This was the needle that would inject the lethal injection into his life. But I needed more. I needed to destroy him completely. I needed to make sure he had nothing left when the handcuffs clicked. I heard a crash from the living room, the sound of wood splintering. I put the phone in my pocket and grabbed my cane. I shuffled out of the room, putting on the mask of the confused old man. The living room was being stripped. 2 men in grimy jumpsuits were hauling my grandmother's antique dining table toward the front door. It was solid mahogany, hand-carved, worth more than Gavin S. car. They were dragging it, scraping the legs against the hardwood floor. "Careful with that," Gavin barked. He was standing by the window, holding a clipboard. He looked manic. His hair was disheveled, his eyes wild. He was sweating. "Take the paintings too," he shouted, pointing at the oils Coretta had collected over 40 years. "And the rugs. Roll them up." Kendra was standing in the corner. She looked small, broken. She was hugging her arms to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Gavin, please," she sobbed. "That is Mama's table. We had Thanksgiving there. You cannot sell it." "We have to, Kendra." Gavin snapped, not even looking at her. "The accounts are still frozen. I need cash. The investors are pulling out. We are bleeding money. Do you want to lose the house? Do you want to be on the street?" He was lying. The investors weren't pulling out because they didn't exist. He needed cash for the Russians. He was selling our memories to save his kneecaps. He walked over to the mantelpiece. He picked up a small velvet box. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I knew what was in that box. It was Coretta S. wedding ring, the one I had put on her finger 45 years ago. The one she never took off until the swelling from the poison made her hands puff up. "No," I whispered. Gavin opened the box. The diamond sparked in the sunlight. It wasn't huge, but it was perfect. Flawless. Just like her. "This should get us a few grand," he muttered. Kendra let out a wail. "Gavin, that is her ring. You promised we would keep it. For our children. Children need food, Kendra." Gavin yelled, turning on her. "Children need a roof. This is just a rock. It is useless sentimentality." He shoved the box into his pocket. I gripped my cane until the wood creaked. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to charge him, to smash his skull, to take back what was mine. But I stood still. I watched. If I stopped him now, it was just a family dispute. If I let him walk out that door with the ring, it was grand larceny. It was theft of an Elder S property. It was a felony that carried mandatory prison time. I had to let him do it. I had to let him break my heart one more time so I could break him forever. He turned and saw me. "What are you looking at, old man?" he sneered. I blinked, my eyes watery. "Are we moving?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Is Coretta coming with us?" Gavin laughed. It was a sound void of humanity. "Yeah, Zeke, we are moving. We are moving you to the poorhouse. And Coretta is already there." He turned back to the movers. "Take the TV. Take the stereo. Take it all." I watched them strip my life bare. I watched Kendra cry and do nothing. I watched the man who killed my wife steal her ring, and I did nothing. I just recorded it all on the camera hidden in the teddy bear on the bookshelf. Take it, Gavin. Take it all, because you are just packing your own prison cell. I turned and shuffled back to my room, leaving them to their looting. I sat at my desk and pulled out the burner phone again. I had one more call to make. A call that would seal his fate. I opened the file I had stolen from his laptop, the chat logs with the Russian number. I dialed the digits. My heart was pounding a slow, heavy rhythm. It rang 3 times. "Da," a voice answered. Deep, rough. The voice of a man who solved problems with a hammer. I didn't speak Russian, but I knew the language of the street. "I am calling about Gavin Miller," I said. There was a pause. The line crackled. "Who is this?" the voice asked. It wasn't friendly. "I am the man who knows why you haven't been paid," I said. The voice laughed. A dry sound like dry leaves crushing. "Gavin says, bank error. Gavin says, tomorrow." "Gavin is lying," I said. "Gavin is broke. He is liquidating assets right now. He is selling his wife's jewelry. He is selling the furniture. So, he pays us." "No," I said. "He isn't paying you. He is buying a ticket. One way." Silence, then a shift in tone. Sharp, dangerous. "Where?" "I don't know yet," I lied. "But I know he has a second passport. And I know he isn't planning on being here when the loan comes due." "Why you tell me this, old man?" "Because he owes me too," I said. "And if he runs, neither of us gets paid." "What you want?" "I want a meeting," I said. "Tonight, midnight, the old shipyard, warehouse 4. You are police." "If I was police, I would be arresting you," I said. "I am just a man who wants his pound of flesh. Come alone, or don't come at all." "But if you don't come, Gavin flies." I hung up. My hands were steady. I felt cold. The kind of cold that comes before a storm. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a player. And I had just invited the wolves to dinner. I looked at the empty spot on my finger where my own wedding ring used to be before my hands got too arthritic. "I am sorry, Coretta," I whispered. "I let him take your ring, but tonight I am going to get you a headstone made out of his bones." I checked my watch. 6 hours until midnight. Time to get ready. The shipyard at midnight was a graveyard of rusting iron and bad intentions. Fog rolled off the water, thick and smelling of salt and diesel fuel. I parked my rental car 3 blocks away in the shadow of a defunct crane. I didn't want them to see the license plate. Not that it mattered. If tonight went wrong, a license plate would be the least of my worries. I walked toward Warehouse 4. My leg ached, a dull throb that shot up my hip with every step on the uneven pavement. I gripped my cane not for support, but because it was made of solid hickory and I could crack a skull with it if I had to. But I hoped I wouldn't. I wasn't here to fight. I was here to trade. The warehouse door was a massive slab of corrugated metal slightly ajar. Orange light spilled out, cutting a jagged line across the wet concrete. I stepped into the light. "Hold it." 2 men stepped out of the shadows. They were big-built like vending machines with necks as thick as my thighs. They wore leather jackets that creaked when they moved. One of them patted me down. His hands were rough, invasive. He found my burner phone. He took it. He found my wallet. He checked it and shoved it back in my pocket. He ran his hands down my legs, checking for a wire or a piece. He lingered on my bad leg. "He is clean," the guard grunted. "Go in." I walked inside. The space was cavernous, the ceiling lost in the gloom above. In the center of the concrete floor sat a heavy wooden table under a single hanging bulb. Ivan sat there. He was exactly as the files described him. Ivan the Butcher Volkov. He was eating a steak, rare, the red juice pooling on the white plate. He used a knife that looked more like a dagger than cutlery. There were guns on the table, a Glock, a revolver, and a sawed-off shotgun that looked like it had seen better days. Ivan didn't look up as I approached. He cut a piece of meat, chewed it slowly, and swallowed. "You are the father-in-law," he said. His voice was deep, a rumble that you felt in your chest. "I am Zeke," I said. I pulled out a metal chair and sat down opposite him. The legs screeched against the concrete. The guards flinched, but Ivan just smiled. "You have balls," old man Ivan said. "Coming here alone." "I am not alone," I said. "I have insurance." Ivan laughed. A short bark. "Everyone has insurance. Until they bleed. Why are you here, Zeke? You want to pay Gavinus debt." "I don't have $2 million, I said, keeping my voice steady. "And even if I did, I wouldn't pay for that leech's mistakes." "Then why?" Ivan asked, pointing the steak knife at me. "Because he is trying to run," I said. The smile vanished from Ivan's face. He put the knife down. "Run where?" I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. The guards raised their rifles, clicking off the safeties. I moved slowly, deliberately. I pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I hacked his laptop," I said, sliding the paper across the table. "He bought a ticket this morning. One way. Cayman Islands. Leaves tomorrow at 6 a.m. Ivan picked up the paper. He read it. His face turned a dark, violent shade of red. The veins in his neck bulged. He slammed his fist onto the table, making the guns jump. "That rat," he roared. "He told me he was liquidating assets. He told me he was selling the house." "He is liquidating assets," I said. "He sold my wife's jewelry today. He sold my antique furniture. He emptied the joint account he shares with my daughter. He has about $300,000 in cash and crypto, and he is taking it all with him." Ivan stood up, kicking his chair back. It tumbled over with a crash. "I will kill him," he shouted. "I will peel the skin from his bones. I will feed him to the crabs." He looked at his guards. "Get the car. We go to his house. We finish this tonight." "Wait," I said. I didn't shout, but my voice was sharp, commanding. It was the voice I used when I was lead investigator on a fraud case. Ivan stopped. He looked at me. His eyes were crazy with rage. "You tell me wait, old man. He is stealing my money. If you kill him tonight, you lose the money," I said calmly. Ivan paused. He breathed heavily like a bull. "What you mean?" "The money is in crypto wallets," I said. "I saw the files. It is encrypted. If he dies, the passwords die with him. You get a dead body. You get the satisfaction of revenge. But you lose $2 million. Plus the $300,000 he is stealing right now." Ivan processed this. He looked at the guns. He looked at me. "So what you suggest? We ask him nicely." "No," I said. "You let me handle him." Scene 2. Ivan leaned over the table, his face inches from mine. I could smell the steak and the stale tobacco on his breath. "You handle him," he sneered. "Look at you. You are a cripple. He will break you in half." "He thinks I am senile," I said. "He thinks I am weak. That is my advantage. He doesn't know I know about you. He doesn't know I know about the flight." So Ivan asked, straightening up. "So I keep him here," I said. "I stop him from getting on that plane." "How?" "I create a crisis," I said. "A family crisis. Something he cannot walk away from. I force him to stay. I force him to transfer the assets back to my daughter, and I get him to unlock those wallets." And then Ivan asked, crossing his massive arms. "And then when I have my house back, and my daughter's money is safe, and he is broke and broken, then you can have him." I looked Ivan in the eye. "I don't care what happens to him after that. I just want justice for my wife, and I want my daughter safe. You want your money. We can help each other." Ivan stared at me for a long time. He was weighing the risk. Finally, he picked up his chair and sat back down. "You are a cold bastard, Zeke," he said. "I like that." He picked up a piece of gristle from his plate and tossed it to the floor. "Okay. I give you 24 hours, until tomorrow midnight. If I don't have my money by then, I come to the house, and I kill everyone. Gavin, your daughter, and you." "Understood," I said. But Ivan added, holding up a finger. "He needs to know I am watching. He needs to know the clock is ticking. He thinks he can run. I need to show him he cannot hide." He gestured to one of the guards. "Bring me the box." The guard disappeared into the shadows and returned with a small cardboard box. It looked like a shoebox. Ivan took the leftover steak bones from his plate. He threw them into the box. Then he reached into a bucket of ice beside his chair. He pulled out a fish, a mackerel, dead eyes staring, mouth gaping. He wrapped the fish in a piece of butcher paper. He took a marker and wrote a number on the paper in thick black strokes. $2 million. He put the wrapped fish into the box on top of the bones. He sealed it with duct tape. Give this to him, Ivan said, sliding the box toward me. Tell him it is a housewarming gift. I took the box. It was heavy damp. It smelled of death. I stood up. I will see you tomorrow, Ivan, I said. Don't be late, old man, Ivan said, picking up his knife again. Or you go in the box next. Scene 3. I drove back to the house in the dark, the box sitting on the passenger seat like a passenger from hell. The smell of fish filled the car. It was 2 a.m. when I pulled up down the street. The lights in the house were blazing. Gavin was awake. He was probably packing, probably transferring the last of the funds. I walked up the driveway, keeping to the grass to muffle my footsteps. I placed the box on the front doormat. I pressed the doorbell. Once, long and hard. Then I ran, or hobbled as fast as I could. I ducked into the rhododendron bushes by the side of the porch. I had a clear view of the door. I waited. A minute passed. Then the deadbolt slid back. The door opened. Gavin stood there. He looked wrecked. His hair was standing up. His shirt was unbuttoned. He held a baseball bat in one hand. "Who is there?" he shouted into the night. Silence answered him. He looked left. He looked right. He looked ready to swing at shadows. Then he looked down. He saw the box. He froze. He knew what a package on the doorstep at 2 a.m. meant. It wasn't Amazon. He lowered the bat. He crouched down. He reached out and touched the box tentatively. He ripped the tape. He opened the flaps. The smell hit him. I saw him gag. He recoiled, covering his nose with his arm. He reached in and pulled out the paper. He unwrapped it. He saw the fish. He saw the number written in black marker. 2 million. He dropped it as if it were burning. He let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream. It was a whimper, a high-pitched sound of pure terror. He scrambled backward, Crab walking into the foyer, kicking the box away from him. Fish guts spilled onto the porch. He slammed the door shut. I heard the lock click, then the deadbolt, then the chain. I moved closer to the window, peering through the gap in the curtains. Gavin was on the floor in the hallway. He was curled into a ball. He was shaking violently. I saw a dark stain spreading across the front of his expensive trousers. He had pissed himself. The fear had literally evacuated his bladder. He was hyperventilating, gasping for air like a drowning man. "They found me," he sobbed. "Oh God, they found me." Kendra came running down the stairs. She was wearing her silk robe, her hair in a messy bun. "Gavin," she cried, seeing him on the floor. "What happened? What is that smell?" "It is them," Gavin gasped, pointing at the door. "The investors. They know. They know I am leaving." He stood up, stumbling. He grabbed Kendra by the shoulders. His eyes were wide manic. "We have to go," he said. "We have to leave right now. Forget the bags, just get the cash, get the keys. We cannot leave Gavin." Kendra said, pulling away. "We don't have the house sold yet. We don't have the insurance money. We have nothing." Gavin stopped. He looked at her. Then he looked up at the ceiling toward the guest room where he thought I was sleeping. He stopped shaking. His face went slack. The panic receded, replaced by a cold, deadly resolve. "We don't need to sell the house," he whispered. "What?" Kendra asked. "We just need the insurance," Gavin said. "The policy pays out double for accidental death." Kendra stared at him. "Gavin, what are you saying? He isn't dying fast enough," Gavin said, his voice devoid of emotion. "The poison is too slow. He is too strong. We need that money tonight, Kendra, or they are going to come in here and cut us into pieces." "No," Gavin, Kendra cried. "That is my dad. You cannot. It is him or us," Gavin shouted. He shook her. "Do you want to die, Kendra? Do you want them to hurt you? Because they will. They will do things to you that you cannot imagine." He pushed her away. He walked toward the kitchen. "I have to do this," he said. "It is a mercy, really. He is old. He is sick. He is suffering." He opened a drawer. He didn't take a knife. He took a heavy decorative pillow from the sofa. "I am going to end his suffering," he said. He walked toward the stairs. I watched him go. I felt a strange calm wash over me. He was coming to kill me. He was going to smother me in my sleep. Good. I slipped around to the back of the house. I entered through the kitchen door, which I had left unlocked for this exact moment. I moved silently through the shadows. I didn't go upstairs. I went to the guest room where I was supposed to be sleeping. I arranged the pillows under the blanket to look like a sleeping form. I pulled the sheet up. Then I stepped into the closet, leaving the door cracked open just an inch. I took out my phone. I opened the streaming app. I hit the button marked Go Live. The little red light came on. Come on up, Gavin. Come and get your money. The storm hit just after 3 in the morning. It slammed into the house like a freight train made of wind and rain. The old oak trees in the yard groaned and thrashed against the siding. Thunder shook the floorboards beneath my feet. Then the power went out. The hum of the refrigerator died. The little green lights on the microwave vanished. The house was plunged into a darkness so absolute it felt heavy. It was the kind of blackness that makes you hold your breath. I sat in the closet of the guest room, the door cracked just enough to see the outline of the bed. I wasn't afraid of the dark. I had lived in the dark for months grieving my wife. I knew every creak of this house. I knew where the floorboards squeaked. I knew where the shadows gathered. Gavin did not. To him, this darkness was a monster. It was the reason he couldn't see the trap. It was the reason he was going to make a mistake. The wind howled outside, masking the sound of footsteps on the stairs. But I felt them. I felt the vibration of his weight shifting on the landing. He was coming. He was coming to suffocate a sick old man in his sleep because he was too much of a coward to face his own debts. I checked the live stream on my phone one last time. The signal was strong even in the storm. The night vision on the camera hidden in the smoke detector washed the room in a ghostly green light. Thousands of people were watching. The chat room was scrolling so fast it was a blur. They were witnessing a murder attempt in real time. I put the phone in my pocket. I gripped the cold steel of my grandfather's 12-gauge shotgun. It wasn't loaded with buckshot. It was empty. I didn't need bullets to destroy a man like Gavin. I just needed fear. The door to the guest room creaked open. A silhouette appeared in the doorway. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating him for a split second. He looked like a nightmare. His eyes were wide and manic. His shirt was soaked with sweat. In his hands he held a thick down pillow. It was one of Coretta-'s favorites. He was going to use my wife's comfort to kill me. He stepped into the room. He was breathing hard. Loud, ragged gasps that sounded like a saw cutting through wood. He was terrified, but he was moving forward. Desperation is a powerful fuel. He crept toward the bed. I had arranged the pillows and blankets perfectly. In the dark, it looked exactly like a frail old man curled up on his side. Gavin stood over the shape. He hesitated for a heartbeat. Maybe it was a flicker of conscience. Maybe it was just fear. Then he raised the pillow. "I am sorry, Zeke," he whispered. His voice was trembling. "I really am, but I have no choice." He lunged. He brought the pillow down hard over where my head should have been. He threw his entire body weight onto the bed. He pressed down with his forearms locking his elbows, trying to crush the windpipe of the man who raised his wife. He pushed and pushed. He was grunting with the effort. He was waiting for the thrashing. He was waiting for the fight. But there was no fight. The shape under the blanket simply compressed. It didn't kick, it didn't struggle, it just flattened. Gavin froze. He pushed harder, thinking maybe I was already dead. Maybe the poison had worked. Then he realized the texture was wrong. He wasn't pressing against bone and gristle, he was pressing against foam and cotton. He ripped the pillow away. He grabbed the blanket and tore it off the bed. A flash of lightning lit up the room again. Gavin stared at the laundry bag I had stuffed with towels. He stared at the empty bed. Confusion washed over his face, followed instantly by pure primal panic. He spun around, scanning the dark corners of the room. "Zeke," he hissed. "Zeke, where are you?" He backed away from the bed. He was hyperventilating now. The hunter had just realized the cage was empty. I let him reach the door. I let him think he could run. Then I racked the shotgun. Clack, clack. The sound was louder than the thunder. It was the universal sound of judgment. Gavin froze. He turned slowly toward the closet. I kicked the door open. I clicked on the heavy tactical flashlight taped to the barrel of the gun. The beam hit him square in the face, blinding him. He screamed. He threw his hands up, dropping the pillow. He stumbled back, tripping over his own feet and crashing into the dresser. "Please," he shrieked. "Please don't shoot." I stepped out of the closet. I didn't limp. I walked tall. I aimed the light and the barrel right at his chest. "Hello, Gavin," I said. My voice was calm, steady. It was the voice of the man I used to be before grief made me quiet. He was shaking so hard his teeth were chattering. He looked at the gun, then at me, then at the nothingness where he thought my dead body would be. "Zeke, listen to me," he babbled, tears running down his face. "It is not what it looks like. I was just checking on you. I was fluffing your pillow." I laughed. It was a dark sound. "You were fluffing my pillow with your entire body weight?" I asked. You were checking on me by trying to crush my skull. I stepped closer. He scrambled backward, crab walking until his back hit the wall. He was trapped. I know about the pills, Gavin, I said. I know about the digoxin. I know about the fake deed. I know about the Russians. And I know you killed Coretta. His eyes bulged. No, that was an accident, he cried. Stop lying, I roared. The thunder punctuated my words. Gavin broke. He curled into a ball, covering his head with his hands. I had to, he sobbed. I owe them so much money. They were going to kill me, Zeke. They sent me a fish. A dead fish. So you decided to kill me instead? I asked. You decided my life was the price of your stupidity. He looked up. His face was a mask of snot and tears. He looked pathetic. This was the man who had strutted through my house like a king. This was the man who had called me senile. Just shoot me, he whispered. Just do it. End it. I cannot face them. I cannot go to jail. Just kill me. I lowered the shotgun slightly. I looked at him with pure disgust. Kill you, I said softly. No, Gavin. That is too easy. Death is an escape. Death is peace. You don't deserve peace. I stepped forward until the barrel of the gun was inches from his nose. I want you to live, I hissed. I want you to live to see everything you built turn to ash. I want you to live to see Kendra look at you with hatred. I want you to live in a cage knowing you had it all and you threw it away for greed. He stared at me trembling. I am not going to kill you, son, I said, but I am going to make you wish you were dead. I reversed the shotgun. I gripped the barrel. He tried to scramble away, but he was too slow. I swung the heavy wooden stock. I didn't aim for his head. I aimed for his collarbone. Crack! He screamed a high-pitched wail of agony. He slumped to the side, clutching his shoulder. Then I hit him again on the side of the head, just hard enough to turn out the lights. He crumpled to the floor unconscious. I stood over him, breathing hard. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me tired. I looked at the scene. It looked perfect. I put the shotgun back in the closet. I grabbed a loose rug from the floor and bunched it up near his feet. Then I went to the top of the stairs. Kendra. I screamed, my voice filled with fake panic. Kendra, wake up! Help! I heard her door open. I heard her running down the hall. Dad! She yelled. Dad, what is wrong? She reached the top of the stairs, her flashlight beam dancing wildly. It is Gavin, I yelled, pointing into the guest room. He fell. He slipped in the dark. I think he hit his head. She ran past me into the room. She saw him lying there, the pillow next to him, the rug bunched at his feet. Oh my God, Gavin, she cried, dropping to her knees beside him. She looked up at me. Call 911, she shouted. I pulled out my phone. I dialed. 911. What is your emergency? My son-in-law fell, I said, my voice trembling with the perfect amount of old man fear. He was checking on me and he slipped. Please hurry. I looked at Gavin lying broken on the floor. The police were coming, the paramedics were coming, and tomorrow the reckoning was coming. Sleep tight, Gavin, I thought, because when you wake up, your nightmare begins. The courtroom smelled of lemon polish and stale coffee. It was a sterile cold room designed to strip a man of his dignity, and today it was doing a fine job. I sat at the defense table, my hands folded on the wood, trying to stop them from shaking. I was not shaking from fear. I was shaking from a rage so hot it felt like it was burning a hole through my chest. Across the aisle, Gavin sat next to his lawyer. He looked pathetic. His head was wrapped in a thick, white bandage. His arm was in a sling. He sat in a wheelchair, even though I knew for a fact his legs worked just fine. He was playing the victim. The battered son-in-law who had tried to care for a violent, senile old man. He caught my eye. He didn't smirk this time. He looked sad. He looked like a man carrying the weight of the world. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. The judge, a stern woman named Hernandez, looked over her glasses at the petition in front of her. We are here for an emergency guardianship hearing regarding Mr. Ezekiel Harper, she said. The petitioners claim Mr. Harper is a danger to himself and others due to advanced cognitive decline. Gavin S. lawyer stood up. He was the same shark from the bank. Vane, Your Honor, he said, his voice dripping with false concern. We are not here to punish Mr. Harper. We are here to save him. 2 nights ago, in a fit of paranoid delusion, Mr. Harper attacked my client with a shotgun. He nearly killed him. This was not the act of a rational man. This was the act of a mind that has snapped. I gripped the table. I wanted to stand up and shout that I was defending myself, that Gavin had come into my room to suffocate me with a pillow. But I stayed silent. Strickland, my lawyer, sat next to me. He put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Wait," he whispered. Then they called their witness. My heart broke when I saw her stand up. Kendra. My daughter walked to the witness stand. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen. She wouldn't look at me. She kept her eyes fixed on the floor as she swore to tell the truth. Mrs. Miller-Vane asked softly, "Tell the court what you saw that night." Kendra took a shaky breath. She gripped the railing of the stand. "I heard screaming," she whispered. "I ran upstairs. My dad was standing over Gavin. He had a gun. He didn't look like himself. He looked wild. And what did Gavin say happened?" Vane pressed. "He said he was checking on Dad because the power went out." Kendra sobbed. "He said Dad got confused in the dark and attacked him." Vane turned to the judge. "You see, Your Honor, a loving son-in-law checking on an elderly relative brutally assaulted. Mr. Harper believes his family is plotting against him. He believes his dead wife talks to him. He is living in a fantasy world, a violent fantasy world." Kendra looked up then. She looked right at me, and the pain in her eyes was worse than any physical blow I had ever taken. "I am sorry, Dad," she said, her voice breaking. "I have to do this. You are sick. You are going to hurt someone. We just want you to be safe. We want you to go to Sunny Meadows where they can help you." She truly believed it. Gavin had twisted her reality so completely that she thought locking me away was an act of love. She thought she was saving me. I watched my daughter cry, and I felt a piece of my soul die. She was testifying against me. She was handing me over to the wolf because she thought he was the shepherd. "Thank you," Mrs. Miller-Vane said. "No further questions." Strickland didn't cross-examine her. He knew it would do no good to attack a grieving daughter. He just let her step down, let her return to Gavin's side, where he put a protective arm around her. The judge looked at me. Her face was hard. "Mr. Harper, these are serious allegations," she said. "Do you have anything to say?" I started to stand, but Strickland held me back. "Not yet," he whispered. "Let them play their ace." Vane walked back to his table. He picked up a thick file folder. He held it up like it was the Holy Grail. "Your Honor, testimony is one thing, but science is another. We have here the medical records from Dr. Aris, a respected neurologist. He examined Mr. Harper 2 weeks ago." I frowned. I had never met a Dr. Aris. Vane handed the file to the bailiff, who brought it to the judge. "As you can see," Vane continued, "Dr. Aris conducted a full cognitive evaluation. His findings are conclusive. Mr. Harper is suffering from stage 4 Alzheimer's disease with aggressive tendencies. His brain is deteriorating rapidly. He has lost the ability to distinguish reality from hallucination. He is legally and medically incapacitated." The judge flipped through the pages. She nodded slowly. "The scans are quite clear," she murmured. "The atrophy is significant." Gavin wiped a fake tear from his eye. "It is devastating." "Your Honor," he choked out. "We tried to keep him home. We tried to care for him. But after the attack, we just cannot do it anymore. We need guardianship to get him the care he needs and to secure his assets before he squanders them in his confusion." It was the kill shot. The medical evidence. It didn't matter that it was fake. It was on official letterhead. It had charts and graphs. It was the stamp of authority that the court needed to sign my life away. The judge closed the file. She looked at me with pity. "Mr. Harper, based on the testimony and the medical evidence, I am inclined to grant the emergency guardianship. It is clear you are no longer capable of making your own decisions." She picked up her pen. She hovered over the order. Gavin leaned forward. He was vibrating with anticipation. He was seconds away from owning me. He was seconds away from selling my house, stealing my money, and burying me in a hole called Sunny Meadows. Just as the pen touched the paper, the double doors at the back of the courtroom banged open. The sound echoed like a thunderclap. Everyone turned. Strickland stood up. He buttoned his cheap suit jacket. He looked like a brawler stepping into the ring. "Your Honor," Strickland boomed, "before you sign that death warrant, I have a witness who would like a word." The judge frowned. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Strickland. You had your chance to call witnesses." "This is rebuttal evidence, Your Honor," Strickland said. and it goes directly to the credibility of that medical file you are holding." He gestured to the open doors. "Please welcome Dr. Marcus Thorne, Chief of Staff at St. Jude's Hospital." A tall man in a pristine gray suit walked in. He looked like prestige personified. He carried a briefcase. He walked past Gavin without looking at him. He walked straight to the witness stand. Vane jumped up. "Objection. This witness was not on the list. This witness didn't know his signature was being used to commit a felony until this morning." Strickland countered. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Felony." She put the pen down. "Sit down, Mr. Vane. Dr. Thorne, please take the stand." Dr. Thorne sat. He looked angry. Controlled, but angry. Dr. Thorne, Strickland asked, "Do you know a Dr. Aris?" "I do," Thorne said, his voice crisp. "He was a neurologist on my staff." "Was I fired him 2 hours ago?" Thorne said. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Gavin went rigid in his wheelchair. "Why did you fire him?" Strickland asked. "Because thanks to information provided by your client, Mr. Harper, we conducted an internal audit," Thorne said. "We found that Dr. Aris has been falsifying medical records for cash. Specifically, he accepts bribes to diagnose competency issues in probate cases." Thorne opened his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of bank records. "We traced a payment of $50,000 to Dr. Aris' personal account 3 days ago. The money came from a shell company registered to Mr. Gavin Miller." The courtroom exploded. Kendra gasped, covering her mouth. She looked at Gavin. Gavin looked like he was going to vomit. "Silence," the judge hammered her gavel. Thorne wasn't finished. "Furthermore," he said, holding up the file Vane had submitted, "these scans, they are not Mr. Harper's. They belong to a deceased patient from 3 years ago. We checked the serial numbers. Mr. Harper has never been a patient of Dr. Aris. In fact, Mr. Harper's medical records from his actual physician show he has the blood pressure of a man 20 years younger and 0 signs of cognitive decline." The judge looked at Vane. She looked at Gavin. Her expression changed from pity to fury. "Mr. Vane," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "do you have an explanation for this?" Vane was sweating. My client provided the documents. I had no idea." Gavin stood up, knocking his wheelchair back. It clattered loudly. "This is a lie," he shouted. "He forgot his limp. He forgot his act. The old man is crazy. He bribed the doctor." "Sit down," the judge roared. But Strickland wasn't done. He walked over to the defense table. He picked up a thick binder. "Your Honor, we have established that the medical evidence is fake. We have established that the petitioner paid for a false diagnosis. But the petitioner's entire argument rests on the idea that Mr. Harper is a poor, helpless mechanic who needs someone to manage his meager assets." Strickland opened the binder. He turned to the gallery. He looked straight at Kendra. "Kendra, honey, listen to me. Your father didn't want you to know this. He wanted you to build your own life. He wanted you to be independent. But you need to know who your father really is." He turned back to the judge. "Ezekiel Harper is not a poor mechanic. For 30 years he ran a private investigation firm specializing in high-stakes insurance fraud. He took his fees and he invested them. He bought land in the 70s when nobody wanted it. He bought commercial real estate in downtown when it was a slum." Strickland pulled out a document. "A property tax summary. Mr. Harper owns 3 apartment complexes, 2 warehouses, and the land that the new stadium is built on. He holds these assets in a blind trust." He dropped the binder on the judge's bench. "The value of Mr. Harper's estate is not $200,000 as Mr. Miller believes." He paused. The silence was absolute. "The current valuation of Ezekiel Harper's portfolio is $15 million. Gavin made a sound like a dying balloon. His jaw dropped. His eyes bugged out. 15 million. He had been trying to kill me for a house worth 400 grand. He had been trying to steal pennies when he was sitting on a gold mine. Kendra stood up. She looked at me. She looked like she had been slapped. "Dad," she whispered. "Is that true?" I stood up. I didn't need my cane. I stood tall. "It is true, baby girl," I said. "I kept it safe. For you. For your kids." I looked at Gavin. He was staring at me with a mixture of horror and greed. He was doing the math. He was realizing that if he had just been a good husband, if he had just been a decent man, he would have had it all. But he got greedy. And now he had nothing. "Mr. Harper is not incapacitated," Strickland concluded. "He is the CEO of a holding company. He is sharp. He is lucid. And he is currently the only thing standing between Mr. Miller and a prison cell." The judge looked at Gavin. The disgust on her face was palpable. "Petition denied," she said, slamming the gavel. "And Mr. Vane, I am referring you to the Bar Association. Mr. Miller, do not leave town. The district attorney will be very interested in these bank records. Court is adjourned. Gavin collapsed into his chair. He looked small. He looked defeated. But I knew him. I knew the look in his eyes. It wasn't remorse. It was panic. The Russians. He hadn't paid them. He had spent his last dime on the fake doctor, and now the world knew he was broke. I walked past him on my way out. I leaned down. "Tick-tock, Gavin," I whispered. He looked up at me. There was no arrogance left. Just fear. Pure animal fear. "You ruined me," he hissed. "No, son," I said, straightening my tie. "You ruined yourself." I just turned on the lights. I walked out of the courtroom, leaving him to the sharks. But I knew it wasn't over. A rat is most dangerous when it is trapped. He had one card left to play. Me. He couldn't get the money legally, so now he would have to take it the hard way. I looked at Kendra standing alone in the aisle. She looked lost. I had saved her inheritance. Now I had to save her life. 3 days after the judge nearly threw him in jail, Gavin did the only thing a narcissist knows how to do. He doubled down. He organized a birthday party for Kendra. It was not a celebration. It was a desperate trade show. He rented a tent for the backyard of the house he no longer owned. He hired a string quartet he could not pay. He invited every wealthy person in the city he had not yet swindled, hoping to find one last sucker to bail him out of his $2 million hole. I watched from the street, sitting in the back of a tinted SUV. The house was glowing with lights. Valets were parking cars. It looked like a fairy tale, but I knew it was a funeral pyre. Gavin had hired private security specifically to keep me out. He had told the guards that I was a violent dementia patient. He had told Kendra that I was forbidden from attending for my own safety. I watched through the window as guests arrived. They were smiling, unaware that they were walking into a lion's den. Gavin stood at the door greeting them. He looked manic. His smile was too wide. His eyes were darting around the perimeter, looking for the Russians, looking for the police, looking for me. Kendra stood beside him. She looked like a ghost. She was wearing a red dress, but her face was pale. She forced a smile every time Gavin squeezed her waist, but her eyes were dead. She was trapped. She knew her husband was a fraud, but she did not know how deep the rot went. She did not know he had tried to kill me. She still thought that was a misunderstanding. She was holding on to the shred of the life she thought she had. I checked my watch. It was time. Gavin was trying to pitch a new investment to a local real estate tycoon near the Punch Bowl. I could see his hands moving fast. He was selling air. He was trying to get a check before the night ended. He needed money to run. He needed money to pay off the hitmen he thought were coming for him. He had no idea that the hitmen were already there, and they were working for me. I opened the car door. I stepped out onto the pavement. I did not reach for my cane. I left it on the seat. For months I had played the part of the cripple. I had exaggerated my limp. I had hunched my shoulders. I had let them believe I was fading. Tonight, I stood up straight. I buttoned the jacket of a $3,000 bespoke suit I had bought in London 10 years ago. It still fit. I adjusted my cuffs. I took a deep breath of the cool night air. I was not Zeke the mechanic tonight. I was Ezekiel Harper, the man who owned half the commercial district downtown. 2 men stepped out of the SUV behind me. They were not police. They were Ivan S. men. The same men who had guarded the warehouse. They wore black suits that strained against their muscles. They were my insurance. We walked up the driveway. The gravel crunched under my polished shoes. The private security guard Gavin had hired stepped in front of me. He was a big kid, probably ex-football, looking bored. "Sir, you are not on the list," the guard said, crossing his arms. Mr. Miller said no admittance to family members. I did not stop walking. I did not look at him. I looked straight at the front door. One of Ivan S. men stepped forward. He did not say a word. He just placed a hand on the guard's chest and moved him aside like he was a piece of furniture. The guard stumbled back, looking into the dead eyes of the Russian enforcer, and decided that minimum wage was not worth dying for. He stepped back and let us pass. I walked through the front door. The conversation in the foyer died instantly. The string quartet stopped playing. The silence spread outward like a wave until the entire party was quiet. Gavin was in the middle of a toast. He had a glass of champagne raised high. He saw the guests looking at the door. He turned around. His glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the floor, spraying wine over his shoes. He stared at me. He looked at my suit. He looked at my posture. He looked at the two Russians standing behind me like gargoyles. He did not see the confused old man he had tormented. He saw his executioner. "Zeke," he whispered. I walked into the room. The crowd parted for me. I did not limp. I marched. My steps were heavy and authoritative. "Get out!" Gavin shouted, his voice cracking. He tried to rally his confidence. He looked around at his guests, trying to save face. "Security. Get him out. He is sick. He is dangerous." Nobody moved. The guests, sensing the shift in power, watched with morbid fascination. I stopped in the center of the room. I looked at Kendra. She was staring at me with her mouth open. She had never seen me like this. She had only known the mechanic in grease-stained overalls. She had never met the man who built an empire in the shadows. "Dad," she breathed. I looked at Gavin. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out a folded document. It was thick with a blue cover. "You are trespassing, Gavin," I said. My voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the room. Gavin laughed nervously. He looked at the guests. "See, he is confused. This is my house. I live here. You live here," I corrected him. "But you don't own it." I unfolded the document. I held it up. "This house was foreclosed on at 9 this morning," I said. "The bank seized it because you have not paid the mortgage in 6 months. You forged the payment receipts you showed Kendra." Kendra gasped. She looked at Gavin. "You said the house was paid off." Gavin's face turned a sickly shade of gray. "That is a lie," he stammered. "It is a bank error." "It was not an error," I continued. "The bank put it up for immediate auction to liquidate the debt." I took a step closer to him. "I bought it," I said. "I paid cash. The deed was transferred to the Harper Trust at noon today." I dropped the document on the floor at his feet. "You are standing in my living room, Gavin. You are drinking my champagne. And you are breathing my air." The room erupted in whispers. The humiliation was absolute. Gavin Miller, the big-shot entrepreneur, was living in a foreclosed house bought by the father-in-law he tried to commit. Gavin looked at the document. He looked at me. His eyes were wild. He realized he had lost the last piece of leverage he had. He had nowhere to live. He had no assets to sell. "You cannot do this," he hissed. "I have rights. I have tenancy rights. You have nothing," I said. "You are a squatter, and I want you off my property." Gavin lunged at me. It was a desperate animal move. He raised his fist, intending to strike the old man down one last time. He never reached me. One of Ivan's men moved with a speed that blurred the air. He caught Gavin's wrist in midair. He twisted. There was a sickening pop. Gavin screamed and dropped to his knees, clutching his arm. The Russian looked at me, waiting for a command. I shook my head. Not yet. I looked down at Gavin, kneeling on my floor in his expensive suit, surrounded by the shards of his broken glass. "Get up," I said. "I am not done with you." Gavin struggled to his feet, cradling his arm. He looked around the room, looking for an exit, looking for an ally. And that was when I saw her. Standing near the buffet table was a woman I did not know. She was blonde, young, beautiful in a plastic sort of way. She was wearing a blue, sequined dress that caught the light. She looked out of place among the conservative money of the guests. She looked like she belonged in a nightclub. But it wasn't her dress that caught my eye. It was her neck. Around her throat hung a gold locket. It was heart-shaped, vintage. The gold was soft and worn with age. In the center was a small diamond chip. I stopped breathing. The world narrowed down to that piece of jewelry. It was Coretta's locket. I had given it to her on our 10th anniversary. Inside was a picture of Kendra as a baby. Coretta wore it every single day. When she died, it wasn't on her body. The coroner said personal effects were sometimes lost in transport. I thought it was gone. But there it was, hanging around the neck of a stranger at my daughter Essie's birthday party. Gavin hadn't just sold the ring. He had given my dead wife's most precious possession to his mistress. The rage that filled me then was not hot. It was cold. It was absolute zero. I raised my hand and pointed a finger at the blonde woman. "You," I said. The woman froze. She looked terrified. She looked at Gavin. Everyone looked at her. "Come here," I commanded. She didn't move. She looked like she wanted to run. One of the Russians stepped toward her. She squeaked and walked forward, trembling in her high heels. She stopped a few feet away from me. "That necklace," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Where did you get it?" The woman touched her throat, her hand covering the gold heart. "Gavin," she whispered. "Gavin gave it to me." Kendra stepped forward. She was staring at the necklace. Her face was a mask of confusion and dawning horror. "That is Mom's," she whispered. "That is Mom's locket. She was buried without it. We couldn't find it." She looked at Gavin. "You gave her Mom's locket." Gavin was sweating profusely. He was shaking his head back and forth. "No, Kendra, baby, listen. I found it. I was going to give it to you. She is just holding it. She is an appraiser." "An appraiser," Kendra repeated. Her voice was flat. I looked at the woman. "Are you an appraiser?" I asked. "No," she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. I am Kaylee. Gavin said he bought it for me. He said it was an antique." Kitten. The name from the chat logs. The mistress who told him to use the pillow. The woman who told him to kill my daughter. I looked at Kendra. "This is the woman Gavin has been sleeping with," I said brutally. "This is the woman he spent your savings on. And this is the woman who is wearing your dead mother's necklace while eating your birthday cake." Kendra made a sound like a wounded animal. She looked at Gavin. The love in her eyes finally died. It was replaced by a pure, white-hot hatred. "You gave her my mother's necklace," she screamed. She lunged at him. She started hitting him, pounding his chest with her fists, screaming in incoherent rage. Gavin tried to push her away, but he was hurt and he was cornered. The guests watched in horrified silence. The facade was gone. The perfect marriage was dead. The successful businessman was exposed as a cheating, stealing murderer. I let her hit him. I let her get it out. Then I signaled the Russian. He stepped in and gently pulled Kendra away. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. I walked up to the mistress. I held out my hand. "Give it to me." She fumbled with the clasp, crying, shaking. She unhooked the chain and dropped the locket into my palm. It felt warm. It felt like getting a piece of my soul back. I put it in my pocket. I turned to Gavin. He was leaning against the wall, bleeding from his lip where Kendra had caught him. He looked like a rat trapped in a corner. "Get out," I said. Gavin looked at me. He looked at the Russians. He looked at the door. He laughed. A crazy, broken sound. "Get out," he mocked. "And go where Zeke? You took my house. You took my money. You turned my wife against me. Where am I supposed to go?" I stepped closer to him. I leaned in so only he could hear. "I don't care where you go," I whispered. "But you better run. Because the police are coming with a warrant for murder, and if they don't get you, Ivan will." Gavin's eyes went wide. The name Ivan hit him like a physical blow. He realized I knew everything. He realized there were no secrets left. He pushed himself off the wall. He stumbled toward the door. The guests parted, avoiding him like he was contagious. He ran out into the night, into the darkness, without a car, without money, without hope. I watched him go. I put my arm around my daughter. She buried her face in my shoulder. "I got you, baby girl," I whispered. "I got you." But I knew it wasn't over. Gavin was desperate. And desperate men do one of two things. They run or they attack. And Gavin had nowhere left to run. Gavin ran out the front door, but he didn't get far. Blue and red strobe lights washed over the front lawn, cutting through the darkness like strobe lights in a nightmare. The police were already there. I had called them the moment we stepped out of the car. They had the driveway blocked. They had the perimeter sealed. Gavin skidded to a halt on the gravel, his chest heaving. He looked at the wall of uniformed officers, then back at the house. He made the only choice a coward makes. He retreated. He stumbled back into the foyer, his face pale and slick with sweat. He looked like a trapped animal searching for a hole in the fence. I stood by the buffet table next to the massive projection screen Gavin had set up for a birthday slideshow. It was meant to show pictures of their happy life. Instead, it was about to show the autopsy of his soul. I pulled the HDMI cable from the laptop sitting on the AV card. I plugged it into my phone. The screen flickered. Static hissed through the speakers. Then the image cleared. It was the footage from the camera hidden in the ivy above the kitchen cabinets. The room went silent. The guests who hadn't fled yet stared up at the 20-foot screen. They saw Gavin in his bathrobe. They saw the mortar and pestle. They saw him grinding the white pills. The audio boomed through the high-quality speakers. "I upped the dose today," Gavin's recorded voice said, echoing off the vaulted ceilings. "Digoxin. It mimics heart failure." Kendra put her hands over her mouth. She stared at the screen, watching her husband prepare a lethal cocktail for her father. Then the image changed. It was a screenshot of the encrypted chat logs. The text was huge, undeniable. "Kitten, just use the pillow. Do it tonight. Gavin, I cannot do it with Kendra here. She is watching him like a hawk. Kitten, then get rid of her too. An accident, a gas leak, just finish it." Kendra's knees gave out. She grabbed the edge of a table to keep from falling. She read the words over and over. "Get rid of her too." I swiped to the next image. It was a text message Gavin had sent to his lawyer just 2 days ago. "The stupid cow does not know anything. Once the old man is dead, I will divorce her and take half the estate. I cannot wait to be rid of her whiny voice and her cheap taste." The stupid cow. That was what he called the woman who had supported him for 3 years. Gavin stood in the doorway staring at his own digital confession. He looked stripped, naked. There was no charm left, no facade. Just the ugly, rotting truth exposed under the harsh light of the projector. "Turn it off," he screamed, his voice cracking. "Turn it off. I didn't turn it off. I let it play. I let the loop of him poisoning the milk play over and over. Grind, pour, shake, grind, pour, shake." Kendra turned slowly toward him. Her face was unrecognizable. The grief was gone. The confusion was gone. In their place was a fury so pure it looked like madness. "You wanted to kill me," she whispered. Her voice was low, trembling. "You called me a cow. You killed my mother, and you tried to kill me." Gavin held up his hands. "Kendra, please listen. It is fake. Zeke made it. It is deep fake technology." "Liar," she shrieked. She launched herself at him. She moved faster than I thought possible. She flew across the room, a blur of red silk and righteous anger. Her nails raked across his face. She slapped him, punched him, tearing at his clothes. "You monster," she screamed. "You devil!" Gavin stumbled back, trying to fend her off, but he was weak. He was broken, and she was fueled by the rage of a daughter who had just realized she was sleeping with her mother's executioner. "Get off me!" he yelled, pushing her. She stumbled, but came right back, grabbing his lapels, shaking him. "I hate you!" she screamed. "I wish you were dead!" Something snapped in Gavin's eyes. The fear vanished, replaced by the cornered frenzy of a rat. He shoved her hard, sending her crashing into the buffet table. Silver platters clattered to the floor. He grabbed a carving knife from the roast beef station. The blade was long, serrated, gleaming under the chandelier lights. He lunged. He grabbed Kendra by her hair, dragging her up from the floor. He spun her around, slamming her back against his chest. He pressed the knife to her throat. A thin line of blood appeared instantly on her white skin. "Back off," he roared. "Everyone back off, or I will cut her throat. I swear to God I will do it." The room froze. The screams died in people's throats. The silence was absolute, broken only by Kendra's terrified sobbing and Gavin's ragged breathing. I stood 10 feet away. I saw the madness in his eyes. He meant it. He had nothing left to lose. He was going to prison, or he was going to hell, and he was willing to take her with him. The front doors burst open. Police officers swarmed into the foyer, weapons drawn. SWAT team members in tactical gear filtered in from the patio doors. "Drop the knife," a sergeant yelled, aiming his service weapon at Gavin's head. "Get back!" Gavin screamed, pressing the blade harder. "I will kill her. I need a car. I need passage to the airport. I need $2 million in cash. Now." He was delusional. He was negotiating with ghosts. The police held their fire. They couldn't shoot. Gavin was using Kendra as a human shield. His body was completely hidden behind hers. Only his head was visible, peering over her shoulder, his eyes wild and darting. If they took a shot and missed, they would hit my daughter. I looked at the sergeant. He was sweating. He was signaling for a negotiator. We didn't have time for a negotiator. Gavin was shaking. His muscles were spasming. One slip, one flinch, and that serrated edge would open Kendra's jugular. I looked at Kendra. Her eyes met mine. She was terrified, but she wasn't pleading. She was apologizing. Her eyes said, "I am sorry, Dad. You were right. I wasn't going to let her die. Not today. Not ever." I reached inside my jacket. I moved slowly, smoothly. I didn't reach for a phone. I didn't reach for a wallet. I reached for the shoulder holster I had worn under my suit all night. I felt the checkered grip of my Colt 1911. It was heavy, cold, familiar. I hadn't fired it in 20 years, but some things you don't forget. Muscle memory doesn't age. Police shouted at me. "Sir, put your hands up. Don't move." I ignored them. I wasn't Zeke the victim. I wasn't Zeke the witness. I was Zeke the father. I drew the weapon. The motion was fluid. My arm extended. I locked my elbow. I took a stance, feet shoulder-width apart, weight forward. Gavin saw the gun. His eyes went wide. "You won't shoot, old man," he sneered, peering out from behind Kendra S. head. "You will hit her. You don't have the nerve." He was right about one thing. I couldn't shoot him in the head. The angle was too tight. He was moving too much. But his hand, his right hand holding the knife, it was exposed. It was sticking out past Kendra's shoulder, clenched white around the handle. It was a target the size of an apple moving in the air. I took a breath. I let it out halfway. I focused on the front sight. The world narrowed down to that knife handle. The police were shouting orders. Gavin was screaming demands. Kendra was crying. I tuned it all out. There was only the target. I squeezed the trigger. Bang! The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The recoil traveled up my arm, a solid, reassuring kick. The bullet flew true. It didn't hit Kendra. It didn't hit Gavin's chest. It struck the steel blade of the knife right at the hilt. The impact shattered the handle and sent the blade spinning away into the darkness. The force of the shot broke Gavin's fingers, turning his hand into a ruin of blood and bone. He screamed. It was a sound of pure shock and agony. He let go of Kendra, clutching his mangled hand. Kendra dropped to the floor, scrambling away on her hands and knees. Gavin fell back, writhing on the ground, blood spurting from his hand onto the pristine white tiles. The police swarmed. They were on him in seconds, boots on his neck, zip ties cinching his wrists. "Get a medic," someone shouted. "Secure the weapon." I lowered the gun. I engaged the safety. I placed it gently on the floor and raised my hands. The sergeant walked over to me. He looked at Gavin screaming on the floor. He looked at the gun. He looked at me. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "That was a hell of a shot." I didn't answer. I walked past him. I walked past the officers. I walked to where Kendra was huddled in the corner, shaking. I knelt down. My knees cracked, but I didn't care. I pulled her into my arms. She buried her face in my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. "I got you, baby girl," I whispered, rocking her back and forth. "I got you. It is over." I looked over her shoulder at Gavin. The paramedics were working on his hand. He was crying, begging for morphine, begging for mercy. I stood up, helping Kendra to her feet. I walked over to him. The police let me pass. They saw the look in my eye. Gavin looked up at me through a haze of pain. "You shot me," he gasped. "You crazy old bastard, you shot me." I looked down at him. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel hate. I just felt a cold, satisfying finality. "You broke my wife's heart," I said, my voice low and hard. I stayed quiet. "You stole my money." I stayed quiet. "You tried to kill me." I stayed quiet. I leaned closer, my face inches from his. "But you put a knife to my daughter's throat." I straightened up, adjusting my cuffs. "You are lucky I only took your hand, son. Next time, I will take your soul." "Get him out of here," I said to the sergeant. "He is bleeding on my floor." They dragged him away, kicking and screaming out the door and into the back of a squad car. The lights flashed, reflecting in the pool of blood he left behind. I turned to the room. The guests were silent, staring at me with awe and fear. "The party is over," I announced. "Go home." I looked at Kendra. She was still shaking, but she was standing on her own. She was strong, like her mother. I put my arm around her shoulders. "Let's go home, baby girl," I said. "We have a lot of cleaning up to do." We walked out of the house, leaving the ruin of Gavin Miller behind us. The night air was cool and clean. Justice had been served, and it tasted sweet. The courtroom was quiet when the gavel fell for the final time. It did not sound like a thunderclap. It sounded like a door locking. Gavin stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller than he ever had in his expensive suits. His hair was shaved. His arrogance was gone. The jury had taken less than 3 hours to convict him on all counts. First-degree murder of Coretta Harper. Attempted murder of Ezekiel Harper. Kidnapping. Grand larceny. Fraud. The list was long enough to bury him. I watched from the gallery. I did not feel joy. I did not feel triumph. I felt a deep, heavy exhaustion. Justice is not a celebration. It is just a balancing of the scales. The judge looked down at Gavin. She did not hide her disdain. She sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 30 years for the financial crimes. He would never breathe free air again. He would never hurt another woman. He would never steal another dime. Gavin did not scream. He did not cry. He just slumped forward as the bailiffs took his arms. He looked back once, not at me, at the empty seat where Kendra should have been. She wasn't there. She couldn't watch. When they led him away, I stood up. My knees ached. The adrenaline that had sustained me for months was gone, leaving behind the aches and pains of a 70-year-old man who had fought a war in his own living room. I walked out of the courthouse alone. Strickland shook my hand in the parking lot. "It is done, Zeke," he said. "You did it." "Yeah," I said. "It is done." But the real work was just starting. The legal battle was over, but the damage to my family was catastrophic. Kendra was in a facility, a quiet place with doctors and therapists. She had checked herself in the day after the party. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She couldn't look in a mirror without seeing the wife of a murderer staring back. I drove to the facility every day, but I didn't go in. I sat in the parking lot. I watched her window. The doctors said she wasn't ready. They said she felt too much shame. She felt like an accomplice. She blamed herself for not seeing the truth. She blamed herself for Coretta's death because she had brought Gavin into our lives. I waited. I had waited months to catch Gavin. I could wait for my daughter. 2 weeks later, the doctor called me. "She is ready to see you, Mr. Harper." I drove there faster than the speed limit allowed. I walked down the sterile white hallway. My cane tapped a nervous rhythm on the tile. I opened the door to her room. Kendra was sitting by the window looking out at the garden. She looked thin, frail. She turned when she heard me. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. She shrank back into her chair, pulling her knees to her chest. She looked like a child expecting a scolding. "Dad," she whispered, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I should have known. I should have listened." I didn't let her finish. I dropped my cane. I walked over and knelt beside her chair. I took her hands in mine. They were cold. "Look at me, Kendra," I said. She shook her head, hiding her face. "Look at me." She raised her eyes. They were full of fear and self-loathing. "You are not him," I said, my voice firm and low. "You didn't mix the poison. You didn't forge the deeds. You fell in love with a man who wore a mask. That is not a crime. That is being human." "But I defended him," she sobbed. "I yelled at you. I almost put you in a home. You were protecting your husband," I said. "That is what loyal women do. He weaponized your loyalty against you. He used your love as a shield. That is his sin, not yours." I squeezed her hands. "You are a victim, Kendra. You are a survivor. You are not an accomplice. Do not let him take your soul too. He took enough." She looked at me, searching my face for anger, for resentment. She found none, because there was none. A father does not blame his child for getting bitten by a snake. He blames the snake. "Come on," I said, standing up and pulling her with me. "Let us get out of here," where she asked, wiping her face. "I cannot go back to that house, Dad. I cannot." "We are not going back there," I said. "I sold it yesterday. To a developer who is going to tear it down and build a park. The memories there are too heavy." Then where I asked, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a key. It was shiny and new. "I bought us a place," I said. "It is in the city, near the library. No stairs, lots of light, and a guest room big enough for a nursery if you ever decide to start over." She took the key. She held it like it was precious. "You want me to live with you?" she asked. "After everything." I put my arm around her. "You are my daughter," I said. "My door is always open. My home is your home. Let us go start over." We walked out of the facility together. She leaned on me and I leaned on her. We were two wounded soldiers limping away from the battlefield, but we were walking. And we were walking together. 6 months later, the air was crisp with the smell of autumn. The leaves were turning gold and red, a fire that didn't burn. I parked my new sedan at the gates of the cemetery. It was a quiet place, peaceful. Kendra got out of the passenger side. She looked better. The color had returned to her cheeks. She was working again, teaching music at a local school. She still had nightmares, but she was laughing again too. We walked up the hill carrying a bouquet of white lilies, Coretta's favorite. We stopped at the grave. The headstone was new granite polished to a mirror shine. Coretta Harper, beloved wife, devoted mother, the heart of our home. I placed the flowers on the grass. I touched the cold stone. It didn't feel like death. It felt like a marker of a life well lived. "Hey, honey," I whispered. "We are okay. We made it." Kendra stood beside me. She didn't say anything. She just rested her head on my shoulder. We stood there in the silence, watching the wind ripple through the trees. It was a good silence, a healing silence. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I didn't want to break the moment. It buzzed again and again, a persistent, rhythmic vibration. I frowned. Nobody called me this time of day. I pulled the phone out. I looked at the screen. My breath caught in my throat. The caller ID didn't show a number. It showed a notification from the calendar app, but it was a shared calendar entry, one I hadn't looked at in years. It was a reminder, set by Coretta Harper. 10 years ago. The title of the event was simple: "Happy Birthday, Old Man." My birthday was last week. I had forgotten it in the chaos of the trial and the move. But she hadn't. She had set this recurring reminder years ago, probably laughing as she typed it into her old tablet that synced with our family cloud. I opened the notification. There was a note attached. A digital sticky note she must have written back when we were just starting to worry about getting old. The text appeared on the screen, glowing in the afternoon light. "If you are reading this, and I am not there to say it, happy birthday, Zeke. I know you. You are probably worrying about everything. You are probably trying to fix the whole world with a wrench and a glare. Stop it. Take a breath. I know you will protect our girl. I never doubted it for a second. You are the strongest man I know. You are my silent hero. I love you. Now go eat some cake." I stared at the words. My vision blurred. A single tear rolled down my cheek, hot and cleansing. She knew. Even back then she knew. She knew I would do whatever it took. She knew I would burn the world down to keep them safe. I showed the phone to Kendra. She read it. She smiled, a genuine watery smile. "She is still bossing you around," she said, laughing softly. "Yeah," I said, wiping my eyes. "She is." I looked at the grave. I felt a weight lift off my chest, a weight I had been carrying since the day I found her at the bottom of the stairs. She wasn't just a victim. She was a partner. She had fought with me from beyond the grave. She had given me the clues. She had led me to the truth. And now she was giving me permission to rest. I turned off the screen. I put the phone in my pocket. "Come on, baby girl," I said. "Where are we going, Dad?" Kendra asked, linking her arm through mine. I patted her hand. "We are going to get some cake," I said. "Your mother's orders." We turned and walked back down the hill, leaving the dead to rest and the living to live. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. I was Ezekiel Harper. I was a widower. I was a father. And I was ready for whatever came next. I learned that silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it is just a hiding place for monsters. I thought I was protecting my daughter by letting her make her own mistakes, but I almost lost her to a wolf in sheep's clothing. True love isn't about politeness or keeping the peace. It is about having the courage to burn the house down to save the people inside. Family isn't defined by DNA or marriage certificates. It is defined by who stands next to you in the trench when the bullets start flying. And peace. Peace isn't given, it is earned. Sometimes with a handshake, sometimes with a shotgun. If you enjoyed this story of justice, hit that like button and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut a toxic family member out of your life to save yourself?